Chapter 1373. The means of transportation to the capital was still the train. Because of the freight, the train tickets were getting more and more expensive. The railway tracks were still the same as before. The speed of the train powered by the steam engine was not fast. It was slow and couldn't travel much in a day. At least, that was how it looked to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. They had a few hundred people, so they directly booked 10 carriages. They also took up space in the carriage to bring back the goods. Of course, they had to spend money. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy to get money. "We need to speed up the laying of the railway tracks," Xiao Bei suddenly said as they were swaying in the train. Lu Yin, who was being escorted, was not locked up anywhere else. He was still with Zhang Xiaobao and the others, but his hands were tied. Zhang Xiaobao needed to ask him properly. Because if he was sent back to be tried, he wouldn't be allowed to die, let alone stand on the Vermilion Bird Avenue. The county magistrate couldn't let him continue to be the county magistrate, but he had to arrange a new place for him to see how capable he was. At this time, Lu Yin still didn't know what his future fate would be. Anyway, he was caught, and the reason for being caught was very strong. He thought that he would be free for a while, so he didn't show any respect to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. In fact, he didn't show any respect before, otherwise he wouldn't have thought of stepping on Zhang Xiaobao to get to the top. When he heard Xiao Bei's words, he laughed and said to Xiao Bei, "Do you know how much it costs to increase the railway tracks? Now, if we don't fight with the cannibals and save cannonballs and bullets, maybe we can add another railway track. War is a waste of manpower and money, and so what if the war is over? Can you personally go and occupy other people's land to farm? What do you know? You can't even come up with a plan for economic development, yet you still have the face to discuss national affairs with me. When I said that we should increase the number of railway tracks, I didn't say that we should increase them according to the current lines. I only said that we should increase the number of railway tracks at some stations. This way we can make more rational use of railway resources. In theory, this railway is actually more than enough. It can transport people and goods 24 hours a day at a speed of 800 miles per hour. It's just that there's always a problem with dispatching, so there's always some free time on the railway. By adding more tracks at the station, the loading doesn't need to occupy the normal running road. Once the people and goods are loaded, the train will immediately join the main line of railway. Xiao Bei said a lot of things to Lu Yin with an "I know better than you" look. "Wouldn't it be better if we didn't have to fight?" Lu Yin asked. He was indeed a small part of the anti-war faction. The reason for the anti-war faction was that if they didn't use the soldiers for war and instead invested all of them in the construction of the Tang Empire's infrastructure, not only would the Tang Empire become more prosperous, but they would also save a lot of war materials. Now was the critical period for the development of the domestic economy, and long-distance war was harmful to the entire Tang Empire. Most importantly, not only did war cost money, but they also had to invest a lot of money to research weapons. This wasn't right. The current weapons were good enough and other people didn't dare to attack. Why should they research more powerful weapons? What do you know? Before Xiao Bei and the others could say anything, a person who came in with a cart to deliver hot water shouted at Lu Yin. In fact, there was no need for him to deliver hot water, and he wasn't an ordinary train attendant. He was the conductor of this train, but he wanted to take a closer look at Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, so he had to push a cart over. He happened to hear someone say something against war, so he couldn't help but scold. After scolding, he found that the person who was talking nonsense was tied up, so he laughed and said, "So it's the bad guy who was caught by Xiaobao and Cuckoo. No wonder you said such rude things here. You're finished. You were caught by them personally and you still want to think about it? What does it have to do with you? I'm telling the truth. If we didn't fight and used all of our resources to develop the Tang Empire, our lives would be better than now." Lu Yin looked like he had nothing to lose. He raised his chin and signaled everyone to look outside. The windows of the passenger cars were made of glass, and not every carriage and every train had glass windows. If one wanted to sit in such a place, they had to spend a lot of money. It was a kind of differentiation, and at the same time, it could increase the railway's income. Whether it was Zhang Xiaobao or Wang Wan, they didn't want to cut everything. That was unrealistic. After all, the rich needed something to show their status. The windows of the train were very thick and they were pulled up and down. There were buckles, but they didn't have a double-layer insulation structure. Because the speed of the train wasn't fast, they could be opened when the weather wasn't cold. Looking at the scenery outside and eating the fast food made on the train was a very good enjoyment for many people nowadays. Even those who always took the train would always talk to others about the train, the names of the places outside and what kind of stories there were. The weather now wasn't very cold. At noon it would even feel stuffy, so the windows were opened halfway. The wind blew in from outside, causing the curtains to sway back and forth. However, no one fixed the curtains, as if feeling the wind was also a part of riding the train. Seeing Lu Yan's signal, everyone followed him. The train had just left Luoyang and was heading west. The place where the train was built was also by the river. From here they could see the Yellow River. It was indeed very yellow. Even if they didn't deliberately think that this was the Yellow River, the water wouldn't be clear. However, Lu Yan obviously didn't want them to look at the water, but at the scenery on the river. There were many boats on the Yellow River. The small boats were close to the shore and the big boats were in the middle. There were no people swimming in the river. Every big boat had a flag flying, and the words on it represented the person or power it belonged to. Do you see it? Lu Yan spoke at the right time. This is the prosperous scene of our Tang Empire. It's not like before, when most of the boats on the river were fishing boats or ferrying boats between the two banks. The war with Duosher, you all saw the newspaper a while ago, right? Our Tang Empire dispatched 10,000 boats of all kinds. 10,000 ships, not 10 and not 100. Do you know what kind of ships are going to be sent out? They're all big boats and any one of them can hold hundreds of people. If we don't send them and put them on the river, there won't be a need for those small boats to be busy. Not to mention that they take up a lot of space in the river, they're slow and they carry as little goods as people. This is called a waste of resources. And there's also the supply team. Isn't it good to transport some supplies that are needed in various places? Plus, the production of cannons consumed a lot of metal, and the investment in technology is tilted towards military. What is this called? This is called not being able to distinguish the priorities. The more Lu Yan spoke, the more agitated he became. When he finished, he looked up at the sky and sighed, as if he was the only one who was sober. Zhang Xiaobao looked at the scene on the river outside and nodded with satisfaction. The development is really good. As a big river for water transportation, the transformation and maintenance of the Yellow River must be further strengthened. I don't want to see it lose its water transportation function. Wang Wan nodded. She knew very well what Zhang Xiaobao was talking about. In their time the Yellow River was always cut off. Some places were affected by heavy rain, while others could be crossed in the middle of the river. The dry season and the flood season were not so regular. As a result, they wanted to not have this river. No, they wanted to make good use of it. No, they couldn't. The conductor also sighed. It's really good. Thinking back to the past, I didn't even dare to dream that there would be a day like this. Who could dream that we don't have to carry rations when we go out, and we don't have to hire donkey carts and spend a lot of money? With this thing called a train, one cart can carry a lot of people. Although the tickets seem expensive, it saves time. If you really think about it, it's cheaper than carrying rations. The most important thing is that it's safer. It's much more comfortable than doing it yourself and running to the wilderness at night. This shows that everyone's lives are better. I've been the conductor for 3 years, and I've never seen anyone who's not wearing enough clothes. Because there's no need to flee, the government has already made arrangements. The people have jobs to do and the children have schools. Every day before I go to sleep I think about it and feel happy for a while. Look at that boat. That one with the green flag. Someone is flying a kite. It's a child. Don't get pulled by the kite and fall. I won't be able to save him in time. Xiao Bei was also looking. Suddenly he pointed at the boat on the river. There was a child standing on the deck flying a kite. There was smoke rising from somewhere else. It probably wasn't a fire, but someone eating barbecue. Their life was pretty good. Lu Yan wasn't satisfied with their conversation. He snorted and said, "What I'm saying is that if we don't go to war and invest all the money here, the people's lives will be better than now. I heard that the Ministry of Works has made some good things again. Other than the officials in the capital, the Tang Empire's army is also using them. Why don't they use them on the merchant ships if they're better than the steam engine? Don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. Do you think that if brother and sister want to go to war, we can just not go to war?" Xiao Hai, who didn't like to talk, finally couldn't help but speak up. "You only know that there's a new machine. Then do you know what the new machine uses to work? It's oil. It's made from oil. The Duo Eater has a lot of oil. If they don't fight, how can they send us oil? Look at the oil in the Tang Empire. It's not easy to dig. My brother and sister also said that the quality of the oil in the Tang Empire is worse than that of the Duo Eater. Also, war is also to divert domestic conflicts. You only see the prosperity of the Tang Empire. Don't you see the hidden dangers behind the prosperity? You're a hidden danger. You use the slogan of economic development to do dirty things. Isn't the new machine burning coal?" Lu Yan didn't know the secret of the Ministry of Works. he asked doubtfully. His voice was much lower and he lacked confidence. Burning coal? Other than the steam engine burning coal, what else can use coal? Coal doesn't have much use. Xiaohai gave Lu Yan a disdainful look. Zhang Xiaobao coughed and said, Xiaohai, in fact this coal can be used on other machines. First we have to process the coal. Wait for the technology of the Tang Empire. You'll see it. Oh, it can be used? Xiaohai seemed a little embarrassed. He had just taught Lu Yan a lesson, but now he realized that he had taught the wrong thing. Zhang Xiaobao said to Lu Yan, your rank is not high enough, so I won't explain many things to you. There's no need to. You just need to know that Cuckoo and I are thinking further than you. The economic development of the country is a game of chess. We are the players and there's no chance for us to go back. What Cuckoo and I need is support and trust, not backstabbing. We rushed back precisely because of the appearance of local officials like you. Compared to the war with the outside world, you are the ones that we are most worried about. We never thought that we would lose the war, but the people of the country will have a big problem in the future. After all, this is a society ruled by people. The most helpless thing is that the order from the top can't be followed. Each and every local official has his own little calculations and finds all kinds of excuses to harm the people. In the end, even if we kill him, it's useless. So, your thoughts are the most hateful. There were many things that couldn't be stopped. They could only think of ways to minimize losses as much as possible. The official's salary had to be increased, and the patrolmen had to be sent out continuously. Yes, the most hateful. Anyone caught by Xiaobao and Cuckoo is hateful, the conductor said in agreement. To him, it didn't matter what the official in front of him had done wrong. What was important was who had caught him. How could Xiaobao and Cuckoo have caught the wrong person? After a pause, the conductor said, you're an official. Don't pretend that you understand. Xiaobao and Cuckoo are much more powerful than you. You're much older than them, so why aren't you the one taking the lead to improve the lives of the people? You think that the current weapons are good, but what if someone else makes them? I can't talk to you, so don't be angry. After teaching Lu Yan a lesson, the conductor, who had already seen Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, happily left. He still had to take care of the people in the other carriages. The other carriages weren't like this one, which was full of people. Even the aisles were crowded with people. Some people even hid under the seats. When it was time to eat, the entire carriage was filled with all kinds of smells. Even so, there were still many people taking the train. Compared to walking, it was faster to travel from Luoyang to the capital by train. It only took a day to reach the destination, but it would take a month to walk. The conductor in charge of a train was very satisfied with his job. Every day he could see people from all over the world and listen to them talk about various things. He had gained a lot of knowledge. The most important thing was that he had a little bit of authority. He could arrange good seats for his acquaintances and he didn't even need to buy tickets. When there were empty seats, he could sell some goods from the two places, which was an extra income. The more the conductor thought about it, the happier he became. He hummed a tune that had changed who knew how many times as he pushed his water trolley. He planned to personally serve the other passengers today. What he didn't know was that his actions were exactly what Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were helpless about. Normally speaking, they shouldn't have done what he did, but they couldn't do anything about it even if they wanted to. Everyone in society would think of ways to make good use of their power, even if it was just a gatekeeper. There was no need to talk about officials, but the danger of an official was greater than that of a conductor. After eating 2 meals on the train finally arrived at the capital in the middle of the night. It could have been faster, but other carriages came in and stopped at stations, so time was wasted. The capital's train station wasn't in the main area of the capital. It had a total of 6 lanes, 4 for loading and unloading goods and 2 for people. The reason why the train station wasn't in the innermost area was because there were too many goods. They had to be unloaded and moved to other places. If the carriages were placed in the main area, they would either bump into people or be delayed by pedestrians. Just like Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's train, the current train station was also brightly lit. There were people working and people waiting to go out. They didn't care whether it was day or night. Almost everyone who was waiting to board the train had prepared one or several large packages with food inside. After all, the food on the train was too expensive, or the things that they had to bring to other places. Everyone was chatting with different accents, which made the train station very lively. The difference was that there were no thieves here. To be precise, thieves were an occupation that was almost extinct in the Tang Empire. Those who were caught stealing or robbing were directly sent to the mines to work without having their hands chopped off or beaten. If they were caught stealing, there was no one who directly took out a knife. Otherwise they would be beaten to death. Even if they survived, they would be sent to the authorities to be beaten until they surrendered. It felt that this new law was very inhumane, but the effect was very good. After all, not everyone had nothing to do and wanted to be a thief or robber. Once a group of people were caught working, there would be fewer thieves in the market. Today, the people waiting at the train station in the capital found that the situation was different. There were obviously more security officers around. They could even see the capital's army, patrolling back and forth in groups. In the middle of the night, the sound of horses galloping could be heard. It was similar to the rumbling of a train. With the help of the lights, the literate people immediately knew which team was coming. Tibetan underground cavalry camp? Who are they arresting? Who came here by train? A person carrying a large package saw the flag of the cavalry team and said to a person who was chatting with him. It was obvious that he wanted to show off. He knew the Tibetan underground cavalry camp. The person who listened to him was very cooperative. He looked at the team curiously and asked, "Is this the legendary Iron Cavalry camp?" "Yes." The man nodded and continued, "The Iron Cavalry Battalion is Xiaobao's wedding gift to Yaoan. There are 8 battalions, a total of 8,000 men. Each of them is good at war, and any one of them has at least 3 lives on their hands. Usually they take turns going to the northeast of the grassland to fight with the local people so that they are not rusty. You can't easily see them in the capital, and even if you see them, you can't recognize them. They don't usually use flags and their clothes have no symbols." "But," I said, "but." "Once they wear clothes with symbols and raise the flag of the Iron Cavalry camp, something will definitely happen." "Oh, so that's it. Big brother, you know so much," the obedient person said enviously. He really didn't know that he was not from the capital. He came to the capital to send his child to participate in the imperial examination next spring. He had to leave his child here. He had to go back and bring some special products from other places to the capital to show his hometown. "I'm from the capital. 3 generations of my ancestors have lived in the capital. I'm also going to West Lake to visit my relatives. I'll talk to you on the way." "That's great. Big brother, look, there's another group of people with words on their chests." "Who are they?" "There are words, let me see, oh my heavens, the Jinwu Guards?" "Brother, that's the Jinwu Guards. They protect the emperor." "I was wrong. The Iron Cavalry camp is not here to arrest people. They should be here to pick people up." The person was so surprised that his voice trembled. The other person also opened his mouth. After a while he swallowed his saliva and asked, "Pick who up? The emperor is here?" "Absolutely. Otherwise, why would the Jinwu Guards come out?" "Pick up? The Miao protection team? I know who to pick up. Did you read the newspaper a few days ago? It said that Xiaobao and Cuckoo are back. They should arrive in the capital today. Maybe the emperor is anxious to wait, so he came here personally. It's midnight. When will I come back? Just send a 7th rank official to pick me up." "Big brother, we can't count on it. Do you think I can see Xiaobao and Cuckoo with my own eyes later? I've never seen them in person. I saw the emperor in the movie. It would be great if Xiaobao and Cuckoo can be filmed. You have to see which lane to take. There are 2 lanes. If you're lucky, you might be able to see them from afar. It's not good to be too close. There are many people at the station. If someone has bad intentions and hurts Xiaobao and Cuckoo, it won't be good." "I know. Even if you ask me to go closer, I won't go." Li Longji really came. He was idle and had nothing to do. When he heard the news that Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were coming, he couldn't sleep, so he asked Gao Lisher to organize people to go to the train station to welcome them and ask about the situation outside. At the same time, he showed that he valued Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. As a result, when he came out, the other officials also heard the news. Whether they were sleeping or doing other things, they all got up, dressed, and came to the train station. Since the emperor valued them, who dared to stay at home. Of course, the officials who came were all 5th rank and above. They all wanted to see if there were any changes in Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, who had been running around outside for a long time. The benefits of war had already been shown. First of all, there were slaves. The war hadn't ended yet, but there were already 160,000 slaves sent to various dangerous mining areas. Then there was the meat and fur of various animals. The meat was salty, very salty. Usually no one liked to eat it, but it was hunted from far away, so it tasted different. The first batch had already been shipped to the capital, and each family was given some. In fact, it was those who were qualified to participate in the imperial court that deeply felt the speed of economic development in the country, especially the statistics from last month. In many places, the people who had participated in the labor training in the early stages had begun to play a role. Their work efficiency was clearly different from before. In some places, it had even doubled. The grain output had also increased, and the autumn harvest data was there for all to see. Not to mention the distant capital, just the nearby workshops, docks, and train stations were all bustling with activity. There was almost no idle person in sight. Originally, they thought that during the war period, the domestic economy would stagnate or temporarily regress. Unexpectedly, as the war continued, the domestic economy increased by a large margin. It was different from previous wars. It seemed that the war was consuming the domestic resources, but in the end, it increased the domestic production capacity. It was very miraculous. Just as Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan had said, an active and controlled war could promote the domestic economy. In the process of war, not only did it consume resources, it also increased the number of new jobs and accelerated the transformation of production technology into productivity. That's right, just as the two of them had said, the domestic production efficiency was indeed low before. It wasn't fully developed. There was production only when there was consumption, and only when there was production would people be forced to search for technology. It seems very simple, right? Li Longji said to the person next to him as he waited for the train to arrive. The person standing next to him was Yu Wenrong, who didn't return home tonight. He was working in the secretariat, and it just so happened that they were together when they came out. Yu Wenrong pondered for a moment before shaking his head. It's not simple. The timing is too good. The moment the war broke out, the domestic policies were passed. There are 12 policies, and if they were issued too early, there wouldn't be any effect. If they were issued too late, there would be chaos. Using war as a means to stimulate demand and divert the new contradictions in the domestic economic development. If Xiaobao hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have been able to think of it no matter what. Right now, all the industries in Great Tang seem to have been sorted out. As long as they want to do something, everyone has something to do. It's easier for the local officials to manage the local areas. As long as they don't make any stupid moves and deal with it according to the normal economic development, they can wait for the fiscal revenue to increase this year. At the same time, they can enter the military and serve as conscripts for a period of time. There are fewer idlers in their daily lives, and with the promotion of Your Majesty's movie, the hearts of the people are more stable. Li Longji's eyes narrowed as he listened. He knew that the national treasury would be more abundant this year, and when the time came he would be able to use the money to carry out infrastructure projects such as building roads and bridges. A portion of it would be used for medical treatment and a portion for education. Who would dare to say that he wasn't a wise ruler? Had there been anyone in the past who had done what he did? Was there? The more he thought about it, the happier Li Longji became. He then asked Yu Wenrong, "What should we do now?" The policy of raising honest people with high salaries has to be carried out. We need to send more patrol inspectors, and those who are caught will be severely punished. This subject and my colleagues have discussed this matter. Right now, the most dangerous thing isn't the corruption of the officials. Instead, it's for the sake of political achievements, not considering the local situation. In the end, when the money is invested and the people are mobilized, in the end, there are no corresponding benefits. Instead, the unreasonable projects will use up all the money. The people will suffer for nothing. What they lose is not only the money of the imperial court and the people, but also the hearts of the people. If the people are cheated a few more times in the future when the officials want to organize them to do things, they will definitely not trust them. Another thing is the telegram that Xiaobao sent back when he was in Hongnong. Lu Yan is a person who is anxious to show off and get results. He even dared to overturn Xiaobao's plan. If this isn't crazy, then what is? Since there are people who want to overturn Xiaobao's plan, then what about the other officials? Thus, this subject and my colleagues feel that the evaluation rules should be changed. It shouldn't be about how much the local government's finances have increased or how fast the currency has circulated. It should be about how much of the local resources have been used when you were a local government official. How much of the income of the people have increased? How many people can't find a job? You just want to use data to prove that your results are good. We don't agree. Yu Wenrong said a lot. He knew that this was his problem. If he waited for Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan to mention it, then he would be neglecting his duty. The two of them had already built up a good foundation. Did he have to leave everything else to the two of them? Then what's the point of him being the head of the secretariat? Li Longji was satisfied with Yu Wenrong's answer. A new era has begun. In this new era there will be new problems. You all need to think about it carefully. If you manage people well, then the world will be peaceful. Your Majesty's words are extremely correct. Normally, I must study and analyze with my colleagues. If this subject had sat in this position 10 years ago, and the current development of the Great Tang suddenly occurred, this subject would have immediately resigned. This subject does not understand the complex relationship between industry and policy. For example, this subject would want to make some changes to the land, allowing the escapees to return to the country and give them land to farm. This subject would also reduce the rent of the new land. However, if this subject were to speak now, this subject wouldn't just focus on the land issue. Instead, this subject would work on other aspects at the same time, just like Xiao Bao's 12 national policies. This subject's way of thinking has changed. At the same time, the way of thinking of the people in the various industries has changed as well. If we can't keep up with the speed of change and make preparations in advance, once a problem appears, it will be difficult to solve it. Thus, the new era is good, but the problems we face are more complicated. We, as officials, need to improve our abilities and standards. We need to learn well. Yuan Rong once again analyzed the current situation, his expression grim. Li Longji also stopped smiling. He also understood that the current Great Tang was developing too quickly. This was especially so when a portion of the technology was converted to civilian use. All sorts of problems would appear. Sometimes one would suddenly wake up from one's sleep, thinking that it was all a dream. Gao Lishir suddenly spoke up, breaking the heavy atmosphere. Your Majesty, actually, there's no need to be too worried. Xiao Bao and Cuckoo are still young. Right, Lishir is right. With Xiao Bao and Cuckoo around, we realize that they aren't tired of controlling the situation at all. Every step has been calculated. What should we arrange for the two of them to do this time? Li Longji was relieved. However, he began to worry about the positions for Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. It wasn't just him. All of the officials in the royal court felt the same. Amidst the silence, the rumbling of a train could be heard in the distance. Chapter 1374. The train entered the station with a rumbling sound. The wooden door opened and Zhang Xiaobao, Wang Wan, and the others came out first, followed by the other ordinary passengers. Although the ordinary passengers were in a crowded carriage, privilege was privilege. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan didn't say anything, and the ordinary passengers naturally didn't say anything either. After knowing that the people on the same train as them were Xiaobao and Cuckoo, they immediately showed absolute understanding. This was a special era, or rather a normal era. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan only knew that when they were just liberated, there was a leader who had reached this level for a period of time. Although the end result wasn't good, and the process in the middle caused a lot of long-term harm to many people, it was undeniable that the people of that era worshipped them. Now that there was no such person, it was naturally the two of them. Moreover, their political positions were very stable, and there was no need to use other methods to attack others. Since the people trust us so much, we really should do more, otherwise we'll be letting down this trust and support. When Wang Wan stood on the platform, she said to Zhang Xiaobao, who was also scanning the surrounding situation, "Rest in the capital and hold the wedding. When the time comes, we'll travel everywhere and go from place to place. Moreover, we won't inform the local people in advance. Wherever we go, we'll investigate that place. As long as we find it, we'll follow the same rules as the current patrol. When we go to a place in July, we'll find that the local officials started to have problems in April. Then from April or from May to July, the patrol will be the same as the local officials. If we can avoid killing them, then we won't kill them. All of them will be dragged to the mines. Whichever mine is the most dangerous, which mine is the most harmful to the body, let them work in that mine. In the future, before sending officials abroad every year, we'll take the officials there for a visit. Although it won't make the government completely clear, we know that it can scare a large number of officials." Zhang Xiaobao said very casually. Wang Wan, who understood him, knew that he wasn't joking. In the future, they would probably really travel everywhere. This was also good. If they couldn't formulate a perfect system that could last for a long time, then they would just take care of the generation in front of them. Naturally, they would leave the rest to their descendants. When Lu Yen heard the conversation between Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, he finally understood the difference between him and the two of them. If he had the same amount of power, how could he be beaten up like this? Lu Yen thought so. Until now, he didn't feel that he was inferior to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan in other aspects. He had to admit that he was very confident. The platform was not an exit. Zhang Xiaobao occupied a spot, so the ordinary people on the train could not continue to use this exit. They would rather walk a bit more and leave from the other side. However, they were reluctant to leave. After getting off the train, they all stood there. Even if they couldn't see Zhang Xiaobao and the others, they still looked forward to seeing them. Only after they were persuaded by someone did they slowly leave. At this time, Li Longji led a group of officials to welcome them. As soon as they met, he didn't wait for Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan to greet him. He first said, "Xiaobao Cuckoo, the two of you are so ruthless. You left us alone in the capital while you ran out to enjoy life. Tell me, how can you bear to do this?" Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were stunned. They never thought that Li Longji would be like this. "Uncle Emperor, I miss you. Living outside is not good at all. Really hug me. Look, I've lost weight." Xiao Bei ran to the front and pounced on Li Longji. Li Longji wasn't young anymore, but his stamina wasn't bad. Not only did he not lose weight along the way, he even grew stronger after eating so much. He was still able to carry the 70 gene Xiao Bei. "Oh, our Xiao Bei has grown taller again. Let me take a look. You've lost at least 10 gene. In another 2 years, you won't be able to move anymore." "How could that be? It looks like I've gained weight, but it's actually because I haven't been eating well and sleeping well. Uncle Emperor, you might not know this, but when we were outside we had to travel a long distance every day. When it rained, we didn't have a place to hide, so we could only hide in a tent. Sometimes we even had to walk in the rain." Xiao Bei refused to admit that he had gained weight no matter what. He kissed Li Longji on the face and complained. Li Longji quickly echoed, "It's tough, it's really tough. Xiao Bei, you've worked hard. You've contributed greatly to Great Tang." "It's nothing much. I'm only doing what I should do. Everyone in Great Tang is working hard. The reason why Great Tang is able to prosper today is because of the contributions of countless heroes in various positions in Great Tang. Just like what Uncle Emperor said in the telegram, it's because of the countless citizens of Great Tang working hard every day like ants that we have the glory of the Great Tang Empire today." Xiao Bei stretched out her small hand and covered Li Longji's ear. Then she shouted loudly. Her voice had a strong penetrating power. She deliberately said it for the people on the platform to hear. Hearing Xiao Bei's words, the citizens were delighted. The officials who came with Li Longji were convinced. The officials couldn't help but admit that Xiao Bei's words weren't ordinary flattery. After all, she wasn't speaking to His Majesty, but to the other citizens. It was no wonder Xiao Bei was so favored. She knew how to test the poison for His Majesty, and now she obediently cooperated. Most importantly, she was still young, so others would believe her words. Lu Yin, who was tied up, felt his heart pounding. He was afraid that Xiao Bei would complain about him at this moment. When His Majesty was in a good mood, he would definitely die. Fortunately, that last said a few words and slipped away from His Majesty. She didn't say anything bad about him. Lu Yin slowly exhaled. Just as he was about to take a deep breath, something that made him afraid occurred. Yu Wenrong walked forward. He didn't first greet Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. Instead, he looked Lu Yin up and down. After a few breaths, he nodded and gave him a thumbs up. "You're Lu Yin? Not bad at all. I heard that you wanted to overturn Xiao Bao's development plan in Hongnong County. Fine, according to Xiao Bao's words, you're a man, a true man. You did what we didn't dare to do. For this you should raise your head. Today, as the Prime Minister, I have to say that I'm not as good as you, whether it's in courage or ability. A few months ago, when Xiao Bao proposed the 12 Principles of State Policy, all the officials were present at the morning court. They didn't oppose it to the death, only discussing and analyzing it. It was because we knew that we weren't as good as Xiao Bao, so we didn't have the confidence to oppose Xiao Bao's policies. You opened a new path for us. Only now did we know that if we didn't want to accept Xiao Bao's policies and plans, we didn't need the same principles to support them. We just needed to use the banner of righteousness to attack from other angles. Amazing, truly amazing." As soon as Yu Wenrong finished speaking, the other officials immediately gathered around and praised Lu Yin. Li Longji also nodded with a smile. When Lu Yin heard everyone praising him, his heart turned cold. Once again he realized what kind of mistake he made. He did what the other officials didn't dare to do. He didn't just belittle Zhang Xiaobao, he belittled everyone who had the qualifications to participate in the morning court. "Will I die? Will my 9 generations be executed?" Lu Yin asked with a trembling voice. "How is that possible? Don't worry, put your heart back into your stomach." Yu Wenrong smiled and comforted him. "We even held a special meeting for you because we really couldn't figure out how you dared to deny Xiao Bao's targeted administrative and economic plans for a place. After discussion, we guessed that you must be someone with great ability. However, you were born at the wrong time, and your talent was displayed too late. Actually, we can't blame you. Who would have thought that Xiao Bao and Cuckoo would be so formidable at such a young age? They even knew how to show off. If Xiao Bao and Cuckoo didn't exist, we believe that because of your existence, Great Tang would also be prosperous and powerful. Those people on the top of the list of tycoons would be more afraid of you than Xiao Bao, and the name on the longevity tablet of every citizen in Great Tang would be you, Lu Yen. Therefore, after careful discussion and careful inference, we believe that you should have a broader stage and not stay in a place with Xiao Bao and Cuckoo's influence. Congratulations, you've been promoted. Yu Wenrong was still smiling as he spoke to Lu Yen. It was the same smile as Xiao Bei's. It was a basic skill of an official. Lu Yen felt his whole body go numb and sweat kept pouring out. He felt cold from head to toe. Your Majesty, this subject is wronged. This subject is really wronged. This subject wants to use the development plan to improve the living standards of the local people. Lu Yen didn't want to be exiled. If he was sent to a place like Luzhou or a place like Wing Province, he would be finished. Li Longji didn't laugh. It wasn't that he didn't know how to laugh, but that he didn't want to laugh. The anger in his heart wasn't small at all. Putting aside the fact that Xiaobao's planning route couldn't be overturned by anyone, even if someone wanted to overturn it, they had to use a practical analysis report to back it up and not just spout nonsense. Hong Nong was the place where people started the flood. He first sent Xiao Bei and the others to take control of the situation, and then Xiao Bao and Cuckoo went to clean up the mess. Xiao Bei and the others contributed more than 1.3 million string of cash to compensate the local people and to build the infrastructure. Xiao Bao and Cuckoo took their younger brother and sister's money, so how could they not make a plan for the local people? For the sake of that plan, the two of them had engaged in countless verbal sparring and arguments. Looking at the development of Hong Nong County in the past 2 years, it was clear that Hong Nong County was different from the Hong Nong County of the past. Every year, the Hong Nong County increased at a rate of 60%. This was due to the tax exemption policy. Compared to the past, Hong Nong County was exempt from taxes for 3 years. Under the situation of not collecting taxes, compared to when they were collecting taxes, a 60% annual growth rate would be additional income. Wasn't this a good planning measure? If the growth rate was still 60% next year, how much would it be compared to before? After 3 years, when the tax collection started, how much would it increase? The most important thing was not the problem of money, but the lives of the local people. About 20,000 people from Hong Nong County came to the capital for a vacation this summer. Traveling was not an investment. It was just spending money without any direct economic returns. It was pure consumption. Would they come to visit if they didn't have money? Would they leave if the people were unstable? Fortunately, Lu Yan's methods were not good enough. Otherwise, if he succeeded in overturning Xiao Bao's 10-year plan, the local people would definitely be in chaos. A person like this deserved to be killed, but not now. Since he wanted to cause trouble, he should go somewhere else to cause trouble. When he could no longer be controlled, he would be killed to quell the anger of the local people. The root of Li Longji's hatred for Lu Yan was this, but he would not show it. He did not smile, nor did he stare. He only said calmly, "Lu Qing, you have to believe in your own ability. Just as Yu Wenqing said, I'll give you a promotion and give you a space to display all your abilities. The place you're going to is a little far, but compared to Luzhou where Yong Qing brought his family, the situation is much better. It's also easier than Wing Province. I believe in you, the officials believe in you, and the local people will certainly look forward to your arrival." When Lu Yan heard the emperor's words, he was temporarily relieved. At least he would not die immediately and his family would not be wiped out. He began to think about where else in Great Tang would be suitable for him to be sent to. Luzhou was obviously not suitable. He would not be sent to Luzhou but to enjoy life there. The Zhang family and Wang family had already built the foundation of the local people. It was also impossible for him to go to Wing Province. Although it was in the land of Sichuan, the Zhang family and Wang family had still straightened out the local relations. So where else could he go? Feng Province? Feng Province was the foundation of the Zhang family and Wang family's animal husbandry, so it was still not difficult. The Bohai Commander-in-Chief's mansion in the north of Hebei Province? What a joke. How could he go there? Deng Province in the easternmost part of Hunan Province? The one with Penglai Island? There was a military port there. The local people were not easy to control in the past, but after the earthquake, the local Zhang family and Wang family's construction group had built a school building. After that kind of earthquake, the local people were very supportive of the imperial court. He reckoned that he would not be allowed to go to such a good place. Not in Jiangxi Province, not in Hunan Province, not in Hedong Province, not in Guanyi Province, not in Shannan Province, not in Huainan Province, not in Jiangnan Province, not in Lingnan Province, not in Quanzhong Province and not in Lingnan Province. He had been to Quanzhong Province. Lingnan Province and Jiannan Province? These two places were remote. If he went there, it was fine because the sea route was there. No matter how difficult it was to govern the place, he believed that they would not dare to make trouble. There were always cruisers and gunboats at sea. Your Majesty, I think we can go to the area west of Lingnan Province. Lu Yen thought that the imperial court would arrange for him to go there. You can't go there. It's too chaotic. Xiao Bao and Cuckoo have just dealt with Jinla and stabilized the local people's support of the imperial court. Your safety is not guaranteed there. There are places that need you more. Li Longji made it very clear that the place Lu Yen wanted to go was no longer needed. Uncle and Cuckoo had not gone there personally, but they had already solved the local problems. So, don't think about such a wonderful thing. Then what other places are there? Lu Yen was confused. Yu Wenrong continued, there are. For example, Japan. The Tang Empire is preparing to carry out actual management there. So, we have set up a new Commander-in-Chief's office called Fusang Commander-in-Chief's Office. You can go there and be the provincial governor. It's hereditary. Japan? I'm not going. Your Majesty, please show mercy. I don't want to go. I can't manage there. Lu Yen begged. Lu Qing, don't be anxious. There's another option. Xinlua also has a Commander-in-Chief's office. Li Longji gave another place. I'm not going to Xinlua either. I don't know how to speak Xinlua's language. Who would be so free to learn that? It's a waste of time to learn a language. It's better to learn economic knowledge. Lu Yen still shook his head. Xiaobao Cuckoo. Li Longji looked at Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. Without waiting for the two to speak, Xiao Bei spoke first. I'm speaking Xinlua's language now. It's very easy to learn. I also know Japanese. My brother and sister usually teach me. County Magistrate Lu, do you understand? Xiao Bei spoke Xinlua's language. She could not write, but it was not a problem for her to speak some everyday language. For example, the 9 of them knew at least 4 foreign languages. Xiao Yuan's writing skills were even better. Yu Wenrong smiled and said to Lu Yen, did you hear that? You can learn if you don't know. Even Xiao Bei knows, so how can you say you don't know? You said you went to a place that Xinlua and Japan couldn't govern. Let me ask you, if it were Xiao Bao and Cuckoo, would they be able to govern the place well? Lu Yen was stumped. He didn't want to admit it, but he had to admit that if he were in Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's place, it wouldn't take long for the two of them to straighten out the local people's hearts when they went to Xinlua and Japan. The two of them were too capable. Back then, Jili Province in the north of Hebei Province didn't have the support of the imperial court. There was no population, no developed land, and no ready-made ports. There were many tribes and races there. The Tang Empire's imperial court couldn't control them at all. They were also affected by Xinlua's interference and influence. When the two of them went there, the army soldiers under their control were also changed. They were changed to the soldiers of Yuezhou. It could be said that they were fighting with their backs against the river. They were surrounded by enemies. If it were an individual, there was no other way to die except to commit suicide. However, they rose up strongly in that kind of situation. On one hand, they gathered the population of various places. On the other hand, they restrained Xinlua. On the other hand, they fought with the local tribes and races. Even so, they still had the leisure to develop the industrial base and control the main economic operations of the Tang Empire. They used the shortest time to recover the soldiers of Yuezhou and sent them to distant places to collect seeds. Right now, Hebei Province was completely under the control of the two of them. None of the agriculture, forestry, animal husbandry, and fishing were bad. If they thought about it a little, at least 6 provinces of the Tang Empire would be directly affected. If they were sent to Xinlua and Japan now, the situation wouldn't be as difficult as when they were sent to Jili Province. The most important thing was that no one in the imperial court dared to play tricks behind their backs. They definitely had a way to make the local people support them. Lu Yen finally began to admit that he couldn't compare to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. He could say that he had a way to improve the economy of a place in the Tang Empire where the political environment was good. However, he had to admit that he couldn't do what Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan did. He could do it everywhere. As he thought about it, his eyes lit up. He said, since Jidushi Zhang and Deputy Jidushi Wang can govern the place well, why don't we send one of them to Japan and the other to Xinlua? The problems of both places will be solved. Bah, you are so shameless. Xiao Bei said angrily, I will give you a loudspeaker. Do you dare to shout out what you just said? No need to shout. I heard it. Lu Yen, right? I remember what you look like. Don't let me see you anywhere else. Otherwise I will kill you. On the platform opposite the train tracks, there were people watching and listening. They couldn't hear anything when the voices were low, but they still managed to understand what was going on from the conversation just now. They knew that this person called Lu Yen went to Hongnong County to make trouble for Xiaobao. Now that he was punished by the imperial court and wanted to find Xiaobao and Cuckoo to take the blame, some people couldn't help but curse. In an instant, after a short transmission of the news, the surrounding people all knew what was going on. Different kinds of curses began to sound. The meaning was the same. They knew that Xiaobao and Cuckoo were powerful and could be placed anywhere. However, they didn't want Xiaobao and Cuckoo to be sent out just because of a small matter. The two of them should be in the capital. When others couldn't handle it and the consequences threatened the Tang Empire, they would be sent out. The two of them were like sharp swords. Usually they should be kept in the sheath and taken out at the critical moment to slash everything. They shouldn't be drawn out to slash people when they encountered a small problem. This was a unique cultural characteristic of China. If there was something good, they would hide it first. Whatever was exposed on the surface was not the final trump card. Even if they couldn't kill you, they could still fight to the death with you. They regarded Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan as the final trump cards of the Tang Empire. They shouldn't be sent out just because of a small matter. Could it be that the rest of the people in the Tang Empire were all dead? This was a kind of self-protection. The strongest person would stay and the others would be sent out. As long as the strongest person hadn't been used, there was no need to worry. Did you hear that? So you have to go. Choose Silla or Japan. Xiaobei turned around and said to Lu Yen, Silla. Japan, whatever. It's the same anyway, Lu Yen replied with a sad face. Chapter 1375. Lu Yen agreed helplessly. However, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan knew that sending Lu Yen to Japan or Xinlua was a form of protection for both of them. Speaking of which, Lu Yan's crime was indeed not small. Managing Hongnong according to his idea would definitely cause the people of Hongnong to suffer a lot. However, they couldn't kill him through the government. His matter involved Zhang Xiaobao. It was easy to kill him, but others would think that he died because he offended Zhang Xiaobao, not because his actions would negatively affect the people of Hongnong. Since they didn't want to kill him, they naturally had to send him out. Otherwise, once the news spread, there would probably be impulsive people looking for an opportunity to kill him. He would be safe once he went out. The meaning behind this was very big. Being able to set up commander-in-chief offices in Japan and Xinlua meant that Great Tang's control over these two places had reached a certain level. First, there was a commander-in-chief office. Next, they could continue to send officials to these two places and become officials at the county level. This was much stronger than the commander-in-chief offices or protectorates that Great Tang had previously placed in various places. In the past, such places were filled by locals and had strong local ethnic characteristics, including regional commanders. The main problem was the independence of each ethnic group or tribe. The factors were naturally the simplest four aspects of Great Tang: economy, military, transportation, and welfare. Now that Great Tang was strong enough in these four aspects, the people in the surrounding areas that were difficult to govern were willing to sincerely submit. For example, the meteor squad sent out by the local people of the Annan Protectorate directly went to Jinla to capture people. Along the way they killed countless people. When they brought back the people alive in the heads, the local people naturally supported Great Tang. From another perspective, it was also a form of deterrence. Today the meteor squad could chase after you for thousands of miles. Tomorrow, if you caused trouble, the meteor squad could still target you. Therefore, the places that were difficult to govern in the past were very obedient. Even if the people sent were not local, the local people would support them. Now that Great Tang was stable internally, they started to take action against Japan and Xinlua. When all the conditions were met, they would send people to govern the places, and Japan and Xinlua would be considered to be under Great Tang's control. After that, there would be a continuation of the immigration policy, giving the nobles of Great Tang the right to buy property in these two places. In other words, these two places had truly been taken over. As for the remaining small ethnic conflicts, was that still a problem? Men, take Lu Yen away. Li Longji really wanted to kill Lu Yen, but for the sake of Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, he had no choice but to suppress his killing intent. Go to Japan. Japan is relatively more difficult to govern than Xinlua. The method I want to tell you is to win the support of the local Japanese people. That is, give them benefits directly. Don't touch the upper class of Japan. The upper class has existed for many years, so naturally, there is a reason for their existence. If you think of all ways to deal with them, it will be more beneficial than providing convenience to the people below. After he finished speaking, Zhang Xiaobao waved his hand and ordered Lu Yen to be taken away. When the civil and military officials who came with Li Longji saw Zhang Xiaobao's sincere expression, they all felt that Xiaobao was a good person. He actually repaid evil with good. How rare was that? Only 3 people's expressions didn't change. One was Zhang Zhong, who wanted to see his children, one was Gao Lisher, and the last was Li Longji. Zhang Zhong knew his son too well. Ever since he was young, his son and daughter-in-law were always shrouded in fog when doing things, especially when it came to his own son, Xiaobao. The more he said something inadvertently, the more you couldn't take it as a gust of wind. Fortunately, his daughter-in-law, Cuckoo, was able to maintain a bit of an upright character. Xiaobao was bad to the bone. Gao Lisher and Li Longji also had a habit, or rather, it was an experience formed from many years of failed struggles. Xiaobao had a belly full of evil tricks. Hoping that he would show mercy when you still had a bad plan in your heart was better than dreaming. Everything was beautiful before you woke up. Thus, Li Longji patted Zhang Xiaobao's shoulder. His dignified face suddenly revealed a wretched expression. He asked, "Xiaobao, tell me, how did you scheme against Lu Yan? Why do you say that, Your Majesty?" Zhang Xiaobao's eyelashes were similar to his sister, Xiao Bei. They were both very long. If he was a man, he would be somewhat handsome. Now he was imitating his sister and blinking his eyes, acting cute. "I'll get your father and let him ask him." Li Longji directly ignored Zhang Xiaobao's cute appearance and threatened him. Furthermore, he also brought up all kinds of past memories. Zhang Xiaobao glanced at his father, who was continuously kissing the 9 little fellows. He sighed helplessly and said, "There are too many restraints in life. Even if you don't have any desires, you still have to consider your family." It's fine to say it out loud. "I'm afraid that Lu Yan will take the wrong path, so I'm just reminding him. That's all." "Do you think he'll listen to you?" Li Longji wasn't fooled by Zhang Xiaobao's expression and words. He wouldn't use such underhanded methods to threaten other officials. However, when it came to Xiaobao, he felt that using all kinds of methods was the right way to go. Thus he looked at Zhang Zhong. Zhang Xiaobao thought that Li Longji was a rascal, but according to the rules of the game, he couldn't say that he wasn't afraid that Li Longji would ask his father to come. He had to give in at this time. He had to explain, "I don't think he'll listen to me. I told him to start from the bottom of the Japanese people. If he's still not convinced, he'll go the other way and start from the top of the Japanese people. But so what? Originally he could start from any direction. Now, the top of the Japanese people have lost their fighting spirit. All they think about all day is enjoyment. If the top enjoys, the middle class will inevitably follow suit. The bottom class will suffer. If he takes care of the top class, the bottom class will applaud and praise him. They have the same goal and the same goal. The purpose of talking to him is to let him focus on this aspect, not to let him think about developing the local economy after he goes there. This is called thinking guidance and psychological suggestion. When he arrives in Japan, he will miss home. When he misses home, he will think about how he left and think about me. No matter if he changes his mind and admires me and listens to me, or if he continues to walk the same path and hates me, the final result will be the same." Li Longji narrowed his eyes and looked at Zhang Xiaobao. He smiled and said, "With Xiaobao here, I can rest assured. He's really good at scheming. Poor Lu Yan. But what if he doesn't do what you want? What will you do?" "There will be businessmen in the past who will look for him to coordinate the relationship with the local government. For example, the problem of bribes from the top and the problem of remuneration from the bottom. He will find that he is facing people and not problems. In fact, businessmen are already doing this kind of thing. For example, hiring laborers. The Japanese people are hired for 10 copper coins per day. Compared to the Tang Empire's money, this amount of money is too little. However, for the Japanese, it is too much. The labor trade between developed countries and underdeveloped countries is the best way to reflect the overall strength of the two countries. This is inevitable and no one can stop it. What is inevitable is reasonable, but what is unreasonable is the specific operation. If the Japanese people are given 10 copper coins per person, they will be very, very happy. The problem is that the money is not given to them directly, but to their local officials. For example, I want to build a glass greenhouse in Wanyan County. The cost of 1 mu is 300 strings of coins, and the total cost is 300,000 strings of coins. I have 3 operating methods. The first is that I directly take out the money and give it to the local people who own the land, buy their land, and hire them to help me build the greenhouse. The second is that I don't buy their land, but I let them use their land to buy shares, and they help me build the greenhouse for free. The third is that I send 250,000 strings of coins to the Yamen of Wanyan County and tell them to figure out the matter of the land and let people help me build the greenhouse. Your Majesty, what do you think the result will be? Zhang Xiaobao gave a simple example. It was really simple. In the end, he said that he would give 250,000 strings of coins to the local government, which was very generous. Otherwise, he would have given 200,000 strings of coins. Wang Wan rolled her eyes at Zhang Xiaobao. She thought that Zhang Xiaobao was criticizing something. Madam, you think too much. I didn't mean that. Zhang Xiaobao still had to explain to his wife. He didn't want to criticize anyone now. He was thinking about how to build the current Tang dynasty well and live a happy life with Wang Wan. What do you mean? Li Longji was puzzled. It's meaningless. Zhang Xiaobao replied. Li Longji nodded. That's what I meant. The various meanings between the two of you are indeed very meaningless in my eyes. Does your Majesty mean that we shouldn't have such meaningless meanings? We are really sorry to affect your Majesty. We understand what you mean. It's enough that we understand. There's no need to explain to us what you mean. We don't mean anything else. Then what this subject said just now, the meaning behind it, we know what you mean. We feel that the second method is better. It can continue to drive the development of Wanyan County, especially the people. It is a choice that a socially responsible businessman would make. The first choice is to take advantage of the local people. The last choice is to die. Li Longji immediately understood what was going on after Zhang Xiaobao finished speaking. The last option was to spend less money and get the local government to solve the problem through administrative orders. This way, the cost of the merchants would be reduced, and the government would be able to reap the benefits while the commoners would suffer. Xiaobao, you mean to say that the great Tang's businessmen have already done this in Japan? Your Majesty, you should continue to expand the intelligence system. Just as you said, when the great Tang's businessmen hired the local people, 10 copper coins would be very cheap, but they went to the local government and gave them 20% of the benefits. Then they took out 50% of the money and asked the local government to help them hire people. In the end, the local government would use various methods to keep a portion of this 50% money, giving them 3 copper coins or 2 copper coins. But it is not so easy for the Japanese people to get these two types of money. They have to use connections and find ways to send gifts to the local government to get the job. As Zhang Xiaobao spoke, he looked at Li Longji in surprise. Li Longji said bluntly, we did not send any intelligence personnel over. We were afraid that they would clash with your intelligence personnel. After all, our people are too arrogant and have no ability. If we wanted to know something, we could just ask your family. How could your family not tell us? That's true. In any case, the situation in Japan is the same as what I just said. There's already a huge gap between the local people, their neighbors, and their officials. The beautiful local women would rather come to the Great Tang to be concubines than marry the locals. Anyone with a bit of money would want to come to Great Tang to settle down. Many officials have already sent their children to Great Tang. When they find that it is not easy to live in Great Tang, they will pack up and come to Great Tang. Zhang Xiaobao spoke truthfully. It might seem uncomfortable, but this was the truth. Regardless of country, region, or race, all individuals hoped for a better life. They would all seek benefits and avoid harm. If the blame had to be pinned on a certain group of people, then it would be the will and ability of the upper echelons. Li Longji felt a chill that came from his heart. Even the clamor of the platform could not dispel this chill. Xiaobao, let's go back. Li Longji extended his arm to Zhang Xiaobao. Zhang Xiaobao immediately came over to support him. He did not say anything. He could understand Li Longji's thoughts at this moment. Wang Wan also supported Li Longji from the other side and silently walked out. Of the two sides, one was Xiaobao, who was adept at calculating and economic matters, while the other was Jianghu, who was adept at war and leading the Great Tang Military Academy. Only then did Li Longji feel better. Everything in front of him became real and not a dream. Xiaobao, Cuckoo, the two of you are not young anymore. You should choose a time to get married. It is not good to have no descendants. If you want to have children, you have to have more children. It would be best if you have a group of children so that they can run around the palace every day. We have many children. Except for Junior and Pan, all of them are afraid of us. We don't eat people. Junior and Pan are not afraid. However, they are not willing to play in the palace. They always stay in your house and play with Jixiang, Rui and Hong. We found a teacher for them and let Huanji be their teacher. In the end, we confused Huanji in one lesson. After Li Longji's heart calmed down, he said to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, "What's wrong?" Zhang Xiaobao cooperated and asked, Nothing, it's just that the child's question is not easy to answer. Huangji said that a gentleman's heart should be like a mountain and his actions should be like water. In the end, asked what kind of water? Huangji explained that water is soft and surging, moistening things silently. It is a mirror in normal times and overflowing in anger. It is very well said, right? Who knew that said that water is little by little, whether it is clear or turbid, whether it is clear or turbid. Huangji said that the clear is clear and the turbid is turbid. That is correct. However, said that it is not as good as normal saline. Can be used to live. Huangji said that it is neither clear nor turbid. Asked again what about glucose? Huangji asked for leave. This is like a chicken talking to a duck. As Li Longji talked about his children, he started to laugh. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan also laughed. They couldn't blame Pei Yaoqing for not being able to teach. The things that they were exposed to were different. The things that the little guys learned were very complicated and they still didn't know how to organize them. That kind of jumping thinking was not something that ordinary people could understand. You two are still laughing, I can't teach them. Li Longji also knew what was going on, but knowing and finding a solution were different. Yes, it can be taught. The main problem is that the current masters are still lacking in knowledge. If you want to teach children well, you need to know astronomy, geography, arithmetic, language, medicine, physics, chemistry, politics, humanities, biology, as well as music, chess, calligraphy, painting, and cooking. Children's desire for knowledge is the strongest. They won't follow the path you've drawn. You may think that you are teaching them literature, but they don't think so. They see you as someone who can do anything. You have to answer all their questions even if the question is childish. To be a good teacher, other than quality, you also need to have ability. This has exposed the lack of teachers now. Wang Wan could understand Pei Yaoqing's pain. She also knew that being a teacher wasn't easy. Depending on the age, your performance would be different. You don't need to be a master of everything, but you need to learn a lot of things. Most importantly, you need to know how to tell stories. Any teacher who doesn't know how to tell stories isn't a good teacher. Regardless of kindergarten or university, as long as you look carefully, you will find that all good teachers have the same characteristic. They are able to quote from many sources. How to solve it? Li Longji didn't ask what other problems could there be. He directly asked for the solution. Specialized realm. Zhang Xiaobao continued, no one is perfect. It is impossible to learn all the subjects. The more the children learn, the harder it is for the teacher to answer the questions. Therefore, those who teach language and mathematics should teach language and mathematics. When the level of the students rises, the level of the teacher will rise as well. Oh, that is indeed the case. That is to say, the higher the level, the harder it will be. Li Longji understood. As for Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's ability to teach all the subjects, he didn't expect all the teachers in Tang dynasty to have that ability. Zhang Xiaobao shook his head. The hardest part isn't the later part, but the earlier part. Early childhood education is more difficult than any other education. A qualified early childhood teacher is more powerful than the people in Jishin courtyard. The responsibility he bears is too heavy. Wang Wan nodded. That was indeed the case. Early childhood teachers didn't only have to teach the children mathematics and other normal knowledge. They also had to guide the children's moral development and health. They had to accompany the children to play, eat, and sleep. They had to communicate with the children from the children's point of view. A busy parent couldn't be compared to a good early childhood teacher. In the children's hearts, the teacher was the sky. When there was no one to play with them, they would look for the teacher. When they were injured, they would look for the teacher. When they were happy, they would look for the teacher. When they were sad, they would look for the teacher. When they were sweating, they would look for the teacher. They were omnipotent. That was why it was required for early childhood teachers to have the above abilities. However, this was very, very difficult. Teachers were also humans. Li Longji didn't think too much, but he understood the logic. He said, I understand. In the future, we will strengthen early childhood education and build a good foundation. How about this? I will take out a portion of the money, you guys will also take out a portion of the money, and we will also take out a portion of the money. We will also use it on nurturing early childhood teachers. It doesn't matter if it takes a long time. We agree. Zhang Xiaobao agreed. It wasn't difficult to nurture early childhood teachers. The main thing was their moral character. As for the basic knowledge, it was relatively simple. Then when will you guys get married? Li Longji didn't forget about this matter. Next month. Zhang Xiaobao looked at Wang Wan and asked with uncertainty. Is 1 month enough time for you to arrange it? Wang Wan asked in a very understanding manner. Zhang Xiaobao shook his head. He knew what Wang Wan meant. To organize a wedding in 1 month? How careless would that be? Li Longji suggested, let's do it before the spring festival. I think the 22nd of December is a good time. It will give the others some time to prepare. Otherwise it will be after the Lunar New Year. Zhang Xiaobao started to calculate. After a while he said, all right, the 26th of the Lunar New Year. There will be enough time to get married. When the time comes to give birth, it will be during the cold season. It won't be uncomfortable. Chapter 1376. Zhang Xiaobao did not enter the palace with Li Longji as he had to return home. There were definitely many people waiting for them back at home, and he wondered if his younger siblings had fallen asleep yet. With the expansion of Chang, it would take some time to return home from the train station. In the future, if we want to build another train station or two, we can build a few more tracks in the capital. This way we don't have to travel far to start the train. It's more convenient to travel short distances. Zhang Xiaobao and Li Longji chatted casually. Speaking of short distances, all short distances were relative. After all, the capital was simply too big. Wang Wan also had the same thoughts. In the past, Beijing was not just a single train station. In fact, some of the provincial capitals also had bad train stations. Furthermore, the two of them had already discussed that the capital would remain in Chang, and in the future. There was no need to think about moving to Luoyang or the original location of Beijing. The location of Chang, and back then was not good, and it was no longer as prosperous as it used to be. Although it was called a natural disaster, it was actually due to the destruction of forests and farmland. For example, the previous national policy encouraged the people to burn down forests and convert them into farmland. In the past, the two of them did not have high statuses, so they could only bear with it. But now, who would dare to not listen to them? Not only were the forests not burned, they were going to plant more trees and transplant better plants to the Yellow Plains to fight against nature. It was impossible to say that there was not enough food. How many people did the country have? How much land did they have? There was still enough food to grow. It was not because the land was not good enough, but because many people who had land did not grow food. Instead, they grew vegetables. The price of vegetables was higher than grains, but they did not plan properly before planting. As a result, the crops they grew were too large and they could not sell them. How many people did Great Tang have? It was just that their crops were not good enough, and they did not know how to open up a large plantation overseas. Li Longji did not know that his capital had been decided by Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. When he heard Zhang Xiaobao's words, he smiled and looked at Pei Yaoqing and the other civil officials. All the civil officials revealed helpless expressions. Gao Lishir chuckled and said, Xiaobao, during the morning court yesterday, we just discussed the matter of building an additional station. The discussion was about whether it was worth it to carry out short-distance transportation from one side of the capital to the other. They also said that after you know about it, you will oppose it because it will affect the other people in the transportation industry in the capital. In the end, many people used this as an excuse to reject the idea of building a station. It seems that many people didn't see through your thoughts. Since you've brought it up today, then tell me, how can it not have a bad impact on the original transportation industry? Zhang Xiaobao was stunned. He used the light of the lantern to examine the faces of all the civil officials. He wanted to see who exactly had used his name to overrule the matters of the imperial court. Those who felt guilty when Zhang Xiaobao looked at them lowered their heads. After sweeping his gaze around, Zhang Xiaobao roughly understood the situation. How can you prove that building more train stations will have a negative impact on the local transportation industry? The current train station is in the southeast of the capital. If we build one in the west, it will only take 20 minutes to get there. Whether it's people or goods, it will be convenient for both loading and unloading. Zhang Xiaobao felt that many of the civil officials were still not qualified. They considered the problem too simply. Xiaobao, Minister Wang, please call me Zhang Xiaobao. Zhang Xiaobao saw that the person who spoke was the Minister of Revenue, Wang Bei, so he impolitely corrected him. He wasn't that familiar with him. In public it was normal. They didn't have that kind of friendship in private. Wang Bei choked for a moment, but he didn't care at all. He smiled and said, Zhang Xiaobao, I want to ask you a question. Without waiting for Zhang Xiaobao to reply, Wang Bei asked the question himself. If there is a normal train station, will the people in charge of transportation in the capital earn more money? From the southeast to the west, the asking price will be very high. If you add a train station in the west, the price will definitely not increase. Their income will decrease. Don't tell me they have to use the profits of the train station in the west to subsidize it? Many people nodded, thinking that what the minister said made sense. They looked at Zhang Xiaobao, waiting for his answer. This is the capital. Zhang Xiaobao replied with 5 words. Shouldn't the transportation industry in the capital earn more money? Wang Bei asked. Wang Wan took over the question at this time and replied, the throughput in the capital is very large. It's people and goods that wait for the train, not the train that waits for people or goods. Although we haven't come back yet, our family has a lot of business here. With our family's influence, sometimes we can't transport out a day's worth of goods, let alone other people. Adding a train station will definitely increase the speed of transportation. With 2 train stations in charge of the entire capital, the people in the transportation industry will have to travel at least half of the distance. This will increase the ability to transport people and goods from other places to the train station. How can the money earned be little? Now the asking price is high. For example, from the train station to the west, an animal-drawn carriage costs 20 copper coins, and it takes 1.5 hours to travel. From the west, it costs 3 copper coins and it takes half an hour to travel. The most important thing is that with only 1 train station, many people in the transportation industry have to wait. They can't get a job even if they wait for 2 hours. The unloading speed of the train is so fast. If they get a job, they can earn a sum of money. Then they wait for 2 hours and get a job back. Obviously they have wasted 2 hours. From the current train station to the west, the journey will take 3 hours. If they waste 2 hours, how many trips can they make in a day? If it's a short journey, they can earn 3 copper coins in half an hour, 6 copper coins in 1 hour, 12 copper coins in 2 hours and 18 copper coins in 3 hours. Compared to before, it's 2 copper coins less, but it saves 2 hours of time. They can earn another 12 copper coins in 2 hours. It's the same for the carriages pulled by people. That's not the most important thing. It's the use of rest time. I understand. Li Longji suddenly said, from the current train station to the west, 1 round trip takes 8 hours. You can't make 2 rounds. Otherwise, you can work for 16 hours and rest for the remaining 8 hours. Unless your home is in the west, you still have to go home. If it's a short journey, you don't have to. You can work for 12 hours and then go home. With the flow of people and goods in the capital, they are earning money every second. Using 12 hours, they can earn 72 copper coins. It's more worth it compared to using 16 hours to earn 80 copper coins. If it's a short journey, you can work for another 2 hours. That's 14 hours and 84 copper coins. Moreover, both the animals and the people need to rest. If you want to rest for a long journey, the customers won't allow it. If you want to rest for a short journey, the animals and the people won't be so tired. It's good for health. When Li Longji said this, the officials didn't need to think further. They immediately understood the situation. It was really like that. One by one they began to flatter Li Longji. All kinds of praises were thrown at him as if they didn't cost money. However, Li Longji was very angry. He didn't sit in his carriage. As he walked, he said, "It's different now. In the past, the reforms proposed by the capable people of the various dynasties were all directed at a certain area. Usually, it was agriculture, water conservancy, merchants, officials, and so on. Furthermore, it was very general. It could be called governing by doing nothing. What they did wasn't wrong. They started from the big picture. However, the current Great Tang is different from them. We have to consider the relationships between the various industries. When the rain continues to fall in Hangzhou, we have to consider whether there will be a shortage of Suzhou bamboo products in the capital. Why? Because Suzhou is close to Hangzhou and produces bamboo. When the rain in Hangzhou doesn't stop, when the speed of transportation is fast, there will definitely be merchants who make bamboo umbrellas in Suzhou and send them to Hangzhou to sell. In that case, how can the merchants who specialize in selling Suzhou bamboo products in the capital not be affected by the lack of supply? This should be the thinking of the Great Tang's officials. Pull one hair and the whole body will be affected. Distant water may not be able to quench the immediate thirst, but the immediate thirst can affect distant water. A mantis's arm can't stop a carriage, but it can push a stone to a good position in front of the carriage wheels and flip the carriage over. In the political economy that Xiaobao and Cuckoo wrote for you, the macroscopic, microscopic, planned economy and market economy aren't independent. We can't always rely on Xiaobao and Cuckoo to do everything, right? Didn't you see? The commoners all understand that we have to hide something. It's not that Xiaobao and Cuckoo are weak. It's that we have to push them to the front whenever there's a small matter. What's the use of having you? Don't tell me that you have to use the last of your family's resources when there's a small matter. You should at least leave a backup plan for us. Our gun can't easily fire the last bullet, even though that bullet is very powerful. Your Majesty, please calm down. This subject is guilty. This subject will definitely learn from you in the future. After Li Longji finished speaking, these words could be heard from the crowd of civil and military officials. Li Longji waved his hand, sighed and said, "Actually, all of you have already done very well. Based on your current abilities, if you were placed in the previous dynasties, you would be the backbone of the officials. You're already several streets ahead of the people who carried out the reform. However, the current Great Tang isn't like the previous dynasties. Our Great Tang has guns that can take lives in an instant, sharp cannons, invincible fleets that can protect the ocean, telegrams that can deliver news in the blink of an eye, hot air balloons and airships that fly in the sky, high-yielding crops, advanced factories, education, and medical systems for the entire population. Shouldn't we keep up with the pace? We know that some of you have always felt that the Zhang family and Wang family of Sanshui County have too much power, and that no one can control Xiaobao and Cuckoo. Then you should work hard and become more capable than them, or at least be on par with them. We can guarantee that there are 20 people who can match up to even half of them, and this subject will send them to the most remote, poorest, and most difficult place to make you happy. Wang Bei, do you think that with this arrangement, they will lament the accumulation of illnesses and die early?" As Li Longji spoke, he suddenly turned to Wang Bei and asked. Wang Bei was very vexed. He was indeed one of the people who opposed the construction of the new train station. Furthermore, his position was so high that he was practically the leader. He hadn't considered the problem of the capital's logistics. What he considered was the fact that his family had given up their land in exchange for the right to use the carriages. There were already enough carriages now. Who could have known that this would happen back then? He had already fallen for the trap and wanted to add another train station. If that was the case, the number of carriages would increase and he would have less and less control over the carriages. That was why he objected. That damn Zhang Xiaobao, how many people had he fooled? In the beginning there were only a few trains. When they were exchanging benefits with the imperial court, they could only control 2/3 of the carriages. Now they didn't even control 1/10 of the carriages. Furthermore, the lost land had started to increase in value, and the production of crops had increased year by year. There were also new crops that could be used. Comparing the two sides, they were at a disadvantage, a huge disadvantage. They had all been tricked by Zhang Xiaobao. He said that the merchants on the list of top billionaires were loyal and patriotic. Were they really? They didn't dare. They were afraid of Zhang Xiaobao, but they were even more afraid of him. They, who were exchanging benefits with the imperial court, were not afraid, but what was the result? They had become the chickens that were being slaughtered by those monkey-like profiteers. Wang Bei, I'm asking you, will you be relieved if Xiaobao and Cuckoo are sent to a faraway place? For example, the Strait of Malacca that they mentioned, or even Africa. Seeing that Wang Bei was silent, Li Longji continued to ask. Wang Bei recovered and thought about it as quickly as possible. He shook his head vigorously and said, "Why should I be relieved? I'm worried that if they go to Africa, the Great Tang won't be able to control them. They'll organize their forces there and carry out a better industrial revolution. What if they come back and attack the Great Tang? We have to keep them. It's best if they stay in the capital every day right under our noses." I concur. Many officials voiced their agreement at the same time. It's good that you know. You can't kill them and you can't send them to a faraway place either. I can only pamper them. In the future, when you feel uncomfortable, think about what I said today. If anyone disagrees, kill them and their entire family. I'm grateful to you. Who's next? Wang Bei, you have some private soldiers in your hands, right? What do you think? Li Longji chuckled and asked Wang Bei. Wang Bei lowered his head and said, "This subject doesn't dare. Putting aside whether or not this subject's private soldiers can succeed in killing them, if we really manage to wipe them out while they're in the capital, our Great Tang will fall into chaos. The economic system will collapse, and we'll have to constantly hunt down the people who are revolting in the various prefectures. This subject doesn't dare to think about the consequences." Wang Bei was very solemn when he spoke, and so were the other officials. They all understood how powerful Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were at the moment. They simply didn't want to vie for the throne. There had been such people in history who had the ability to seize the throne but didn't do so, but in comparison those people were still far from Xiaobao and Cuckoo. Not to mention harming them, just standing on the street and cursing them would make one a hero. If the person who threatened Lu Yen on the platform really left Lu Yen behind, no matter where he was, there would only be one result: death. If he wasn't beaten to death, he would starve to death. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan also had solemn expressions on their faces. They knew what was going on. Just like those great people who had made many mistakes when they passed away, how many people cried? How many people didn't have the heart to work? How many people committed suicide? Of course, this last point was suppressed and not reported, but it was true and it wasn't a small number. Besides, the two of them hadn't done anything wrong to the people of Great Tang yet. This responsibility was too heavy. Your Majesty, my fellow officials, please be at ease. No one will be able to assassinate us. Throughout the world, no assassin has ever succeeded. The two of us will live well, but we won't stay in the capital every day. Tell the local officials who are in contact with you that if they want to do something bad for their own interests, they should think twice. Who knows, we might be by their side when they're bored and want to go on a trip. Zhang Xiaobao threatened. He and Wang Wan both understood that everyone who had the right to participate in the morning court had their own little faction. The two of them didn't care, but as long as they were caught, they would investigate and they would show no mercy. Other than Emperor Li Longji, the rest of the members of the imperial household were useless. They would arrest all the princes and crown princes, and even if they didn't kill them, they would lock them up so that they wouldn't be able to leave for the rest of their lives. Hearing Zhang Xiaobao's words, the officials were indeed nervous. They were considering whether they should clean up their subordinates before Xiaobao and Cuckoo made a move. By then they wouldn't have a chance. Li Longji was very happy with what had happened tonight. He knew that the governance of the officials would be clear for a while. He continued to be supported by Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan on both sides. He said, "The new train station has been decided?" Xiaobao, Cuckoo, do you think the train speed can be increased? Yes, it's very simple. Wang Wan spoke and the officials were attracted again. How can it be increased? Zhang Zhong asked. Father, doesn't the Ministry of Works have diesel engines and gasoline engines? We can just use them to replace the steam engine. Moreover, it's not just a single engine, it can also be distributed among the carriages. The number of carriages on a train is small now, but in the future, it won't be a problem even if there are dozens of carriages. Put one engine in every carriage and it will start moving at the same time. Naturally, the train speed will be faster. Zhang Xiaobao replied to his father. How much? 3,000 miles a day? Fly. Zhang Zhong couldn't believe it himself. It can fly faster than this, but it hasn't been successful yet. The planes that were sent over have already fallen twice. Fortunately, it didn't fly too high, so there won't be any problems with the people. It can still fly. Zhang Xiaobao said casually. So that's how it is. Many people thought in their hearts. Previously, they didn't know the purpose of the diesel engines and gasoline engines developed by the Ministry of Works. They thought that they would only be used to carry them to work. They didn't expect that they would be able to increase the speed of the train and even make it fly. Everyone talked and walked all the way until the wee hours of the morning. Finally, they couldn't take it anymore and got on their respective cars. They closed their eyes and returned home. When Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan reached home, the sun in the east had already jumped out of the horizon. There were a few sheds at the entrance of the usually quiet house. The cooks in the house were busy preparing breakfast. Under the sheds there were a few temporary beds. Although they were called beds, there were actually very thick curtains around them. It probably wouldn't be cold at night. There was also something very familiar to Xiaobei and the others. It was a house that they used to play in and live in. The 2 children slept on the first floor, and the 5 children slept on the second floor. Xiaobei, who had fallen asleep before, was very awake now. He looked forward to going in but found that the sheds were too short, so he had to give up. If it was just sleeping, it wouldn't be a problem. At least it was better than Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's bunkhouse. A 3-story house was higher than an ordinary 2-story house. It was fine even if the adults were sleeping. The ones sleeping on the first floor were naturally Jun, and Pan. There was no one on the 3rd floor. That was the entertainment room. The ones sleeping on the 2nd floor were the earless Hong'er and Ji Xiang Rui. Hong'er was the oldest, so she slept in the middle. On her left was Ji Xiang and on her right was Rui. Through the window one could see how they looked when they were sleeping. Chapter 1377. Like all children with normal nutrition and no illness, Ji Xiangrui and their sister Xiaohong were chubby. Their arms and legs were like lotus roots, white and tender as they slept. Juner and Pan, who were much older than them, slept on their sides. Pan was hugging a cartoon pig pillow that was slightly bigger than her. When Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan returned with their younger siblings, people began to come out of their beds. The two people's grandparents, Wang Wan's parents and Zhang Xiaobao's mother were all dressed neatly. Their gazes swept over Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, then focused on Xiao Bei and the others. "You're all back." Zhang Xiaobao's grandmother was the first to speak. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan hurriedly brought their younger siblings to kneel down and kowtow. The old men and women waited for them to finish kowtowing, then came over and pinched them one by one, afraid that they would be injured. This time, 6 direct relatives suddenly came out of the family, and they were worried sick. They were afraid that Xiao Bei and the other 3 wouldn't be able to endure the hardships outside, and even more afraid that Xiao Bao and Cuckoo would be in danger. As for the other 5, after all, they weren't blood-related, so it was only natural. Wang Wan's father grinned at the side. He hadn't shown his feelings like this for a long time, and was no longer like before when he felt like a rich man. After all these years he had learned well. No matter what, he was still a rank 1 official. Although it was a rank 1 official in name, he was still a rank 4 official in reality. When he saw his daughter and son-in-law return, he immediately took out a letter of appointment from the imperial court and opened it for them to see. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan leaned over to take a look. Sure enough, it wasn't a small official. He was in charge of military equipment, a rank 4 official. Furthermore, his name had been changed to Wang Yu Hozai. The two looked at each other and understood what this meant. As their status in Tang rose, their father planned to be more tolerant in the future. "Dad, did His Majesty change his name?" Wang Wan looked at her grandparents and asked. It was not necessary for one's parents to come up with a name. Those who were not capable would usually find someone with knowledge to come up with a name, and then give them money or things. However, once the name was given, it was not easy to change it. The person who changed the name would have a lower status, just like how one's road to riches in the future would not be easy. Wang Yuqing nodded. "That's right. A few days ago, when you were fighting in the west, I wanted to go back and take a look at the land in Zhuangzi. Traveling by boat was slow and I could see the scenery on both sides. Behind me there were a few boats shouting that they were high-ranking officials. They asked me to move aside, so I did." "Father, who is so bold?" "High official, tell your daughter how high is his rank." Wang Wan didn't wait for her father to finish speaking. Her eyes widened and her eyebrows began to rise. She didn't like to bully others, but she would not allow her family to be bullied. If someone shouted from behind and asked her to move aside, she would smile and move aside. Her family was not allowed. In Tang there was someone who dared to ask her father to move aside. How bold was the other party? It wasn't a high official, just a secondary class 3 official. He was a provincial governor of some province. I only found out after he kowtowed to me and apologized. He went to Sanshui County to learn advanced administrative experience and was anxious. It's my fault I didn't use our family's flag. When we met again in the county, he found out that I was your father and then asked for forgiveness. I told him that it was fine, but he was still worried and accompanied me around Zhuangzi for 2 days. Everything was fine. The land at home was fine and the villagers were fine. However, a few of the older ones had passed away. I had already sent people to help with the burial. When I went to take a look, the people at home were all good. However, when I saw that the familiar faces were gone, I felt a little disappointed. Their corpses were first sent to the medical school for future generations to study. After that, they were cremated according to your request, placed in small boxes and buried in coffins. Zhuangzi was still so beautiful. This year, 11 people were stripped of their lowly status, but more people refused to do so. Even if their families were rich, they were willing to continue being villagers with our 2 families. Those who were stripped of their status would become officials. It was against the rules to keep a lowly status. After 2 days, that provincial governor also followed and ran to His Majesty to ask for forgiveness. I also went to help plead for leniency. What was the point? Oh, the palace was also different. His Majesty renovated the palace very beautifully. Then His Majesty gave me a new name and punished that provincial governor with half a year's salary. Now half a year's salary was not small. He also heard that I was not busy, so he arranged for me to be in charge of the weapons and told me to watch over the weapons. I'm busy all day. I only got better in the past few days. The war in the beginning was too successful, so he stopped providing weapons and couldn't ship them over. Usually, I go to the Ministry of Works to eat with Yongqing. Otherwise he would come over. Now he is researching some semiconductor. He has a box and says that he wants to make a radio station. Every day he will play music for the people who have the box and tell them what to do. He is very busy. Wang Yu rambled on to his daughter for a long time. Only then did Wang Wan return to her previous expression. Zhang Xiaobao also smiled. Just now he had narrowed his eyes. Daring to ask his father-in-law to make way was not giving face to the Zhang family and Wang family. Not to mention a provincial governor, even if it was a prince chasing after them, he would only have one choice, and that was to invite his father-in-law to follow him and not overtake him. Unless there was a special emergency, he would still have to give a proper greeting. It seemed that the provincial governor really didn't know. After he found out, he was frightened. Li Longji had to give an explanation. Half a year's worth of salary was a light punishment. If he didn't, people would think that Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan weren't around and that they had fallen out of favor. Then he gave him the name and courtesy name to tell people that it wasn't that Wang Wan's father was a coward, but that he was magnanimous and didn't pursue the matter. He promoted him to the position of the military weapons supervisor. This proved that even if Xiaobao and Cuckoo weren't around, the Zhang family and Wang family were still standing strong. It's been hard on Uncle Emperor. Xiao Bei, who had also analyzed the situation, said. Then she began to go into the room. She woke up Junior and Panner on the first floor and told them that it was time to eat. How could the two little ones be in the mood to eat? They surrounded Xiao Bei and began to talk happily. They talked about how they missed them, how they told the four babies Hong, Ji Xiang and Rui stories, what games they played with them, and complained that the babies didn't like to listen to stories. They didn't cooperate well when playing games and they always liked to sleep. You were the same when you were young, so you must know how to be grateful. Quickly go and wash up. I'll go up and see them. Xiao Bei acted like an adult and rubbed Junior and Panner's heads. Then she began to climb in circles to the second floor. There was no other way. There were no stairs. Xiao Bao's babies could climb up or down. Xiao Bei hadn't used this room for many years, so she really missed it. Although she couldn't remember the things that happened when she was younger. The temperature in the room hovered between 23 and 25 degrees. In the summer it was 23 degrees and in the winter, it was 25 degrees. It was neither too hot nor too cold, making people feel very comfortable. When Xiao Bei came up, Xiao Hong woke up first. She rubbed her eyes and looked at the person who suddenly came in. She was stunned for a moment before revealing a smile and shouting, "Big sister Xiao Bei?" "Yes, it's me. How is our family's Hong?" Xiao Bei was very happy. It was good that Xiao Hong could recognize her. "Good, my ears." Xiao Hong reached out and pulled out 2 ears from under the pillow. Then she skillfully put them on her head. This made it easier for her to listen. "Ah, our family's Hong is beautiful again." Xiao Bei squatted down and pinched Xiao Hong's face. "Big sister is beautiful too." Xiao Hong replied with a smile. She couldn't remember many things from the past. She just knew the person in front of her and felt at ease and cordial. While the two of them were talking, the four Xiao Bao's babies woke up almost at the same time. They were woken up by the sound and cried together with one of the children. After crying a few times without waiting for Xiao Bei to coax them, they all stopped crying and made various poses. They opened their eyes wide and curiously looked at the person who appeared in their house. Their expressions were both dazed and cute. Xiao Bei sighed helplessly. "I knew you wouldn't remember who I am. I'm your big sister Xiao Bei." "Big sis." A little guy followed and turned to look at Xiao Hong. Obviously they who could speak knew to call Xiao Hong big sister. "Yes, Xiao Hong is also a big sister." "I'm your big sister Xiao Bei." Xiao Bei. Xiao Bei pointed at herself. "Oh no." The baby who spoke just now followed suit. Xiao Bei slapped her forehead. "I knew it was like this." After she finished slapping her forehead, the baby who spoke also came over and slapped her forehead. The other 3 little guys rolled over, stood up, walked over, crawled over and slapped Xiao Bei's forehead. All right, I'm scared of you guys. Your little hands are really strong. Let's go down and eat with big sister." Xiao Bei covered his eyes and endured a few pats. He chuckled and climbed down. The babies followed behind her, laughing. They somersaulted from time to time and were as cute as they could be. The height of the adults allowed them to see the situation on the second floor. They were all laughing. Xiao Yuan and the other 8 could only feel anxious. They wanted to go in but were afraid that they wouldn't be able to come out because of the crowd. After waiting for a while, the babies followed Xiao Bei to the first floor. Immediately, a maid carried them out to bathe and change their clothes. It didn't take long before Xiao Hong and Ji Xiangrui were carried back. They had changed their clothes and looked more energetic. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan went forward and each of them carried a baby. There were words on the chest of their clothes. Zhang Xiaobao was carrying Xiao Ru while Wang Wan was carrying Xiao Yi. Both of them were little girls. Xiao Ru was born to Wang Wan's mother while Xiao Yi was born to Zhang Xiaobao's mother. The 2 little guys were white and tender. They didn't make a fuss even when they were being carried. However, there was a curious look in their eyes. They turned their heads and moved their bodies. They found everything interesting. When the elders of the Zhang family and Wang family saw all the children in front of them, they smiled until their wrinkles squeezed together. Xiao Hong's mother also rushed over. She was also happy to see her daughter. Xiao Bao's baby still needed to drink milk, but Xiao Hong was weaned off milk first. She drank from Zhou and could eat some small buns. The two families ate at the entrance of the mansion and didn't go in. Xiao Bei told them what happened along the way. After eating for half an hour, the streets began to fill up and everyone entered the mansion again. Xiao Bei and the others wanted to rest and stay at home. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan wanted to go out and see the situation in the capital. After sleeping for the whole morning, they rode out after lunch to see where the other train station was. Chapter 1378. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were strolling on horseback. There was a special horse path next to a short flower bed. Between the two horse paths was a road, and on the other side of the flower bed was a sidewalk. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were unable to eliminate the transportation force of livestock. There were very few tractors, and they were only used to transport those who were qualified to attend court to and from work. Bicycles could be used, but the problem was that they could not bear to use steel in this aspect. Animal power must exist. The two of them were riding on military horses, and there were other pedestrians as well. There were horses, donkeys, mules and mules. Under normal circumstances, there were very few people who were riding on horseback like the two of them. Usually they would carry extra things such as a sack of dung at the front and a sack of manure at the back. The two of them didn't know that while they were strolling, the entire Great Tang's telegraph system hadn't been idle since this morning. Last night, Zhang Xiaobao had agreed to Li Longji's marriage on the 26th of the first month, and this news had already spread. Anyone who received this news in the capital, no matter how many connections they had, immediately spread the news of Xiao Bao and Cuckoo's marriage. The entire Great Tang went crazy. When the two of them left in the afternoon, all of the major cities in Great Tang had posted this news on the bulletin boards. Soon after, people began to spread the news to even more remote places. Some wealthy people were already busy preparing congratulatory gifts. Regardless of how long the journey was, they were prepared to ship the goods immediately. They would definitely be able to ship the goods to the capital by the time of the wedding. Some of the ordinary citizens of the county had already begun to discuss whether they should gather money to buy gifts for Xiao Bao and Cuckoo to congratulate them. After more than 2 hours, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan arrived at the western side of the capital. This place used to be outside the city, but now it was also a place where people who didn't have much property lived. However, there were no single-story houses. The capital's land resources were too scarce, and the shortest house was 2 stories tall. It wasn't that the upper and lower floors were separated, but that there was a staircase at the bottom of each house. This way it would reduce the noise and fighting between neighbors. Today's weather was not bad. It was not as cold as the northeast. The sun hung up without any shelter. A little to the west there were not many people wearing thin clothes on the streets. Otherwise it would be too cool when the breeze blew past. At this moment it was the west wind around level 3. It could blow up the signboards of the nearby shops and taverns. There was also the flag of the Great Tang. In the past there was no such flag, but now almost every family had one. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan had specially designed a jigsaw dragon. Otherwise, it would have been very troublesome to make. There were some places that specialized in selling them, some that had their own embroidery, and some that had been painted with dyes. Quite a few of these flags were not standardized, but this did not affect the Great Tang's love and support for the Great Tang. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan saw with their own eyes a baby wrapped in such a cotton flag, carried by his mother and standing beside a wine shop, chatting with another woman while waiting for the wine to be served. The two of them did not believe that the woman's actions were blasphemy against the flag. If the weather was too cold and they couldn't find anything to warm themselves with, burning the flag was fine. Why did they have to say that such actions violated the law? There was no need, and the Great Tang currently did not have such laws. The two of them did not put on much disguise, and there were many guards around them. They held guns and brazenly protected them. Whenever the common folk of the capital saw the two of them, they would excitedly wave and nod. The two of them would return the greeting without even saying anything. Zhang Xiaobao dismounted from his horse and said to Wang Wan, "This kind of casual peace is the most intimate form of love. Who in the world doesn't know you? That restaurant's minced meat noodles are not bad. Smells good. Let's go and eat a few bites. It's a pity that there's no smell of chili oil." Wait for another 2 years and there will be more chili. Wang Wan sniffed and looked at a 3-story noodle restaurant that was emitting hot steam. The signboard clearly had the word hot written on it, but they were selling minced meat noodles. It was probably because the weather was not cold yet, and the hot pot was not selling. Zhang Xiaobao smacked his lips and felt that he could still eat a little. He followed Wang Wan and walked over. Naturally, someone was in charge of their horses. Yo, Xiaobao and Cuckoo are here. What do you want to eat? The waiter was very enthusiastic and greeted the two of them with a smile. If it were someone who did not know the situation, they would think that the waiter had met a regular customer, but in fact, it was the two of them's first time here. The waiter did not cry bitterly, nor did he shout and hug them. It was a very simple greeting, but the waiter's legs were shaking uncontrollably, his eyes were shining and he kept swallowing. Obviously he was trying not to make Xiaobao and Cuckoo feel uncomfortable. If he did not let go, the two of them would probably find an excuse to leave. There were not many people on the first floor. After lunchtime, only 2 tables were occupied. They turned their heads at the same time and took a deep breath, but did not stand up. 2 bowls of noodles. I want mutton soup, preferably clear soup. Don't add mutton. I want a single portion. Don't put too much noodles on it. Don't put too much noodles on it. Don't put any side dishes. I already ate with my wife at noon. Zhang Xiaobao was indeed very comfortable. The waiter took a cloth and wiped the table next to the window. Okay, you two sit here. After saying that, he did not shout back. Instead, he turned around and ran in to arrange it personally. Another waiter immediately came over to check the vinegar on the table. He shook it and found that there was not much left. He exchanged it with the vinegar bottle on the table next to him. He stood by the side ready to serve at any time. He did not forget to explain. There are not many people on the first floor. I have to stand anywhere. Do they eat? The question was asked by the bodyguards who walked in openly. The bodyguards did not hide their purpose at all. They held their guns and looked around. Whether it was the waiter or the people at the 2 tables, they did not think that Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were putting on airs. If there were no bodyguards, they would be worried. Just as the bodyguards chose a place to sit down, 2 people came in from outside. Just as they were about to speak to the waiter, they suddenly froze. They looked at the bodyguards with guns and then turned their heads. They met the eyes of a man and a woman. One of them opened his mouth, took a deep breath, and finally spoke. Xiaobao, Cuckoo, you two are here too? Yes, we came because of the smell. We still have some space in our stomachs. What do you want to eat? Zhang Xiaobao said with a smile. 2 bowls of mutton noodles. Put more chopped green onions and coriander. More oil. 1 dish of fennel beans and 1 dish of sweet garlic. The man shouted to the waiter and then nodded at Zhang Xiaobao. Let's eat at that table. Zhang Xiaobao raised his hand and gestured, meaning that they would go ahead. The two sat down. In less than 3 minutes, the noodles were served. There were fennel beans and sweet garlic as well as 4 small plates. The smallest plate had a serving of garlic cucumber, a salted eggplant, a pickle and a boiled salt bean. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan waited for another 5 minutes before the noodles were brought out by the waiter who just went in. He explained while putting the noodles on the table, the master was resting just now. He was woken up by me and made the noodles himself. That's what I meant. If you want to eat, let's eat what the master made. Zhang Xiaobao expressed his understanding. He picked up the chopsticks and stirred the noodles in the bowl. The bowl was big but there was not much noodles. Although it was clear soup, there was still oil floating on the surface. The chopped green onions were only white, and the coriander foam was also emerald green. There was a shirtless man 2 tables ago. He craned his neck to see what Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were playing with. He said to the waiter with a smile, I'm not being picky, but look at the chopped green onions and coriander in my bowl. Compared to what Xiaobao and Cuckoo are eating, it's obvious that I'm older. The coriander stalk is hard, so I put it in my bowl. Oh, that's not what I meant. I was thinking that your teeth are good, so it's chewy, the waiter replied with a smile. You dare to say that Xiaobao and Cuckoo have bad teeth, so you should be punished. Xiaobao, where are you two going? The man teased the waiter and asked Zhang Xiaobao. Zhang Xiaobao held the noodles in his mouth and slurped a lot. After biting it off, he swallowed it with the soup. He let out a long sigh of relief and said to the man, Go to the west and look at the terrain. There's a suitable place to build a new train station. There's not enough train stations in the capital. Where do you work? Zhang Xiaobao introduced his purpose and asked about the other party's work. He didn't need to say what he did, as he believed that the other party would definitely know. When the man heard this, he became happy. Really? That's great, I'm someone who can directly benefit from it. I pull feet. Look at the mark on my shoulder. My family lives in the west and it's too far away to travel. At night, I don't see any goods coming from the east, so it's an empty trip. It's tiring and my heart is tired. The road is not close and there's no money to be made. It's so frustrating. We should have built a train station in the west a long time ago. Fortunately, you're here. The imperial court is already making plans. The two of us came back to speed up the process. The emperor is very supportive. Zhang Xiaobao couldn't say bad things about others, so he could only explain it this way. Yes, I understand. The man wasn't stupid and understood what he meant. He nodded and turned back to continue eating. They ordered a lot of noodles, wine, and 6 cold plates. There were no hot dishes, no side dishes, and only a plate of bones with little meat. The waiter probably exchanged them for the side dishes. It seemed that they didn't plan to work in the afternoon. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan looked at each other and sighed. There were still rules in the food industry today. Restaurants would definitely have side dishes. Even if it was a roadside tea stall, if you didn't have money, you could go and ask for a bowl of water and the stall would give you a bowl of tea foam for free. However, if you brought the tea leaves yourself, you had to pay for the water. There were rules in the industry. It could also be said that it was a moral tradition. The two ate a bowl of noodles very quickly and drank half a bowl of soup. They couldn't finish a big bowl. They stood up and paid the bill. The waiter said that it was 2 copper coins per bowl. Zhang Xiaobao didn't ask and let the guard pay. He said to the waiter, "In the future, when the bone marrow is knocked out, put it on a separate plate. Otherwise, if you put it in the soup, it will be boiled away and you won't be able to taste it. Mix ginger juice and salt into a half-dry, half-wet mixture and eat it. You can sell it for money or give it to people who ordered a lot of dishes." "Oh, you can eat it like that? Our Xiaobao is really awesome. I'll listen to you. I'll tell the boss later." Benevolence and righteousness. The waiter knew that he undercharged them. Xiaobao and Cuckoo understood, but they didn't pay more. Instead, they gave them a dish which was much more expensive than the one they undercharged. Seeing the two walking out, the waiter asked, "Xiaobao, Cuckoo, are you two really going to get married on the 26th of the first month of the new year?" "How do you know?" Zhang Xiaobao asked in surprise. "Everyone is spreading the news. The telegraph office hasn't been idle since this morning. We want to get a share. I guess other people are also preparing." The waiter confirmed from Zhang Xiaobao's words that they were really going to get married on the 26th of the first month. "Yes, that's the day." Zhang Xiaobao didn't say much. He went out with Wang Wan and showed a worried look. "Let's publish it in the newspaper. Tomorrow's newspaper will be sent out early in the morning. Don't let them buy things and send them here. It's not cost-effective." Wang Wan could imagine what the final result would be if they didn't mention it in the newspaper. "If there's no other way, tell them that we'll charge them 10 copper coins per person. We'll treat all the people of the Tang Empire to a banquet with 10 copper coins per person. It's almost enough for our capital. Then we'll take out a few million strings of coins and add 2 good dishes for each table," Zhang Xiaobao said. Chapter 1379. After their discussion, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan sent someone to pass on the message while they continued to ride their horses. On the road they seemed to know everyone. They even saw the original Tubo and Turkic people. The Tubo did not show any hostility. Like the other people, the original Turkic people did not rush up to fight with the two of them. Zhang Xiaobao did not even see any intention of revenge in the eyes of the original Turkic people. The weak always like to rely on the strong. Even if there is a direct injury under the gradual erosion of time and the yearning for a better life, they will actively or passively accept reality. Under the management of the same political system, no matter what kind of pain they had in the past, ordinary people will adapt well to the new environment. Only people who lost their previous power and could not adjust their mood can possibly be depressed for life. Zhang Xiaobao said to Wang Wan beside him after realizing that the people who were annexed did not want to seek revenge on him and Wang Wan. "Are you telling me about the animal world?" Wang Wan asked with a smile. Zhang Xiaobao also smiled. "No, the animal world requires the efforts of a large number of people. Those who run around in the wild all year round to record the details of all kinds of animals and plants are heroes. What I want to say is that in the future the Japanese and Xinhua people will not hate us. This is probably what the Japanese regret and sullenness. Just as you said, if there is no hatred, the prerequisite is that under the management of the same political system, the Japanese did not achieve this goal when they invaded back then, so they have so many right-wing people. With a little instigation they can even turn the entire population into a right-wing right. Because they hate us just like how we hate them. Don't look at me like that, I really hate them. But I can't put this hatred on the innocent Japanese people now. We have to manage their place well as soon as possible, help them, and let them live a good life with the same amount of labor, but only a little less income than us. As Wang Wan spoke, she waved at the Japanese woman who was standing by the street teaching children to speak the Tang language. The woman also smiled and greeted. Zhang Xiaobao and Wei Wei shook their heads and sighed. A woman's heart is the most poisonous. When these words come out of your mouth, I find that even the days of heavy snow on the grassland in winter have become warmer. Thank you. Wang Wan smiled. The two of them chatted and laughed. After a while they finally arrived at the west side of Chang'an. Although it was called a city, there were no concrete walls. Those things were in the way. But no matter what, the capital was still a city. Therefore there was a clear dividing line between the inside and outside of the city. The dividing line was not a drawn line but a road, a wide road. The east side of the road belonged to the Beijing area, and the west side of the road was still the Beijing area. However, the people who lived on the west side of the road always thought that they were not from the Beijing area, and they had not transferred their household registration. Even though Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan did not personally ask about the reason for not changing their household registration, they could still analyze it. This had nothing to do with the welfare of the capital. Other than the officials, the welfare of the Great Tang was the same for everyone else. Looking at the people on the west side of the road who seemed to be very familiar with the capital but also strange and wanted to adapt as soon as possible, it was easy to understand why they did not enter the capital. Sometimes it is not easy for the local officials. Zhang Xiaobao sighed. He dismounted from the horse and asked the old man, who had just finished sweeping the garbage on the road, "Uncle, have you been here for a year?" "Yo Xiaobao. It's really Xiaobao. I was busy with work and didn't see you too." The old man, who was less than 50 years old, had traces of age on his face. Hearing the noise, he looked up and looked at the person who spoke. Then he recognized who it was. He seemed very happy and excited. Zhang Xiaobao took out a handful of dates from his sling bag and gave half to the old man. He rubbed the rest in his hand with his hand and stuffed it into his mouth to chew. He said, "This shows that you are serious about your work. Eat dates. On the way here, a date seller forced me to eat them." Well, for some people, the dates they plant are sweet. For others, the dates they don't need to spend money taste like honey. When you eat them, you will taste more than just dates. The old man did not back down. He took the dates and rubbed them with his hand like Zhang Xiaobao. He threw them into his mouth and said, if the old man's words were said to the children in the school, they would not understand. However, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan understood. The two looked at the old man differently. To be able to say such words, the old man was not ordinary. Wang Wan came over and said, "It is sweet, sweeter than honey. Not everyone can get things forced by others. Xiaobao and I are satisfied. In the future we will work harder to do what we can do. We will not dare to slack off. Otherwise we will not be able to eat sweet-free dates. And the things we lose are more precious than dates. Uncle, why do you want to do this work?" The old man's eyes narrowed. He looked at Zhang Xiaobao and then looked at Wang Wan. He repeated this several times and said with a smile, "You are really a pair. You are pleasing to the eye. Sweeping the road gives me a lot of money. Looking at the many cars and people on the road, the more prosperous it is, the more comfortable I feel. My family has been here for 9 months. The government is busy and has not sent the certificate of origin. If there are only a few people, the capital can send a telegram to confirm. If there are too many people, I am afraid that the certificate of origin will be falsified. We have to wait for the local government to send the certificate together. In winter it will be sent no matter what. When this group of people leaves, another group will come and continue to live on the west side of the road and wait for the government to send the certificate." The old man's words were simple, but there was no lack of deep meaning in them. After saying this, the old man finished eating the dates. He clapped his hands and picked up the broom again. He said to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, "I am going to work. You two go. I heard that a train station is going to be built. The people on the west side of the road will have to move." Seeing the old man walk away with the broom, Zhang Xiaobao smacked his lips and put the uneaten dates back into the bag. He said, "Unexpectedly, people are so open-minded now. Uncle is a person with a story. Don't worry. When his hometown comes to the capital, he will slowly show his ability. There are more and more people in the capital." Wang Wan was thinking about another problem. Everyone was squeezing into the capital. Would they expand the city after a period of time? Zhang Xiaobao said, "It seems that the station has to be built far to the west. Otherwise it will be stuck in the city. The people are concentrated in the central city, which means that our productivity has not kept up. We still have a long way to go to guide the use of resources and give the Tang people a happy life. Isn't it good to live in the countryside? If I have my own direct power line combined with a seeding harvester and a full set of household appliances, I am willing to live in the countryside," Wang Wan said to Zhang Xiaobao as she squinted her eyes. "Now the task is to make the best use of the steam engine. Let's go." Zhang Xiaobao did not dare to think about the things Wang Wan said. They still needed to work hard. The two remounted their horses and continued to head west. Originally, they had planned to put the new station not far from the current road. It was just right for them to use the transportation function of the lower road. After listening to the old man's words, they had to give up this convenience and build the station far away. As for the loading and unloading of goods from the station, the two were not worried. They believed that there would soon be a large number of people in the area between this road and the new station to carry out planning and construction. This was the difficulty of city planning and construction. The city was divided into blocks by streets. If it was not enough for people to live in, they would expand outward. The previous big project had to be expanded far away. Otherwise, in a short period of time, this block would be filled, and the big project would be wrapped in the middle of the city. But if it was placed too far away, it would become a new city area. The people doing the work in the big project would not be able to travel for a few hours. As a result, due to the distance between the new small city area and the normal city area, the promotion effect of the big project on the city area would not be obvious. Therefore, city planning and construction were planning, construction, prosperity, relocation, and replanning. The two rode their horses through this area that was still filled with bungalows. After traveling for 5 li to the west and avoiding a small hill, they finally determined the location. The soil structure and other things looked good. When they sent someone to inspect and verify the specific details, they would know whether or not it was possible to build a station. When it snowed a foot thick in the capital area, all the places that were working had already stopped. A group of people who went to Duoshi to fight also returned. They were the third-line troops who fought on land from the Tang Empire. When Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan returned to the capital, they successfully met up with the people who went ashore to fight on the sea. After half a month of clearing out, they came back by boat. The task of clearing out was left to the people who went ashore to fight. At the same time, another group of troops was sent over to fight for 2 or 3 months. The people who went ashore to fight before came back. Along with the combat team came a large number of gems, gold, furs, and barrels of oil. The first batch of things was looted directly from the war. The quantity was the largest and the local families had all robbed them. Just this batch of things, according to the pure economic value of money, was enough to cover the cost of the war. Reclamation was like playing a game. One could always get a little advantage. However, the account could not be calculated like this. The metal consumed in the war could indeed be offset by the things harvested. Moreover, the things looted even exceeded the price of the metal consumed. However, if the metal was not used in the war but in the construction of infrastructure, the money earned and the foundation built would be more than the things looted. Speaking of which, the money directly obtained from the war was not as good as using the metal for construction. However, they defeated Duoshi and created the conditions for long-term economic plunder in the future. It was very interesting to calculate over and over again. In the eyes of Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, it was still a good deal. They had gained military, political, and economic benefits. In the blink of an eye, it's already the 21st of December. In 2 days it will be the little new year, then the big new year, the first month. Counting with my fingers, there's still a month to our wedding day. In fact, it should be in March at the beginning of summer. Zhang Xiaobao calculated for a long time, patted the thick pile of paper on the table, and said to Wang Wan, who was writing and drawing next to him. Wang Wan stopped. "What? You think it's too early to marry me?" "No, this half-month is really hard to bear. There are more than 8 months to go and nearly 9 months to go. Pregnant women are really temperamental. What I mean is that when we get married on the 26th of the first month, our business in various places, and the businessmen in the food industry who cooperate with us will be even busier. The new year is already very busy, but we still have to prepare for the banquet in advance. I'm afraid that many people will not be in the mood to celebrate the new year and will wait for our wedding day. Let's take it as an older one. The children will be happier." Wang Wan touched her stomach and said. She had confirmed that she was pregnant for 1.5 months, 20 days ago. Since they were going to get married, Naturally, there was no need for other measures. She had planned to do it later, but the adults of the two families urged her to do it earlier. Chapter 1380. With the arrival of the new year, every household was busy. Those with stalls were busy selling their own goods, while those who were not in business were busy cleaning up. At the same time, they bought all the things they needed for the new year. The prices of goods in various places suddenly increased. Usually, the villages and small counties would increase their prices by 10% to 20%. The counties where the prefectures were located would increase their prices by 20% to 30%. Cities like the capital and Luoyang would all increase their prices by more than 30%. There was also a 50% increase in the prices of other goods, but there was no more and there was no 100% increase. Of course, luxury goods and antiques were an exception. This was a habit that had been formed in recent years. Under the macro adjustment, the market economy would fluctuate normally. Merchants without strength could not increase their prices, and those with strength did not dare to do so. The economy in the Tang Empire had always maintained stable growth. It was not that the people did not have money, but that the people who had money to spare no longer stared at the necessities for survival. Instead, they began to buy goods that could improve their quality of life. Good clothes, beautiful jewelry, and comfortable houses were all things that the people yearned for. There were also people who liked traveling. As long as they had more savings, they were willing to go out for a stroll and see what other places were like. There was not much of a burden in terms of survival. The biggest burden was comparing with their neighbors. The people in the village compared with each other to see whose family had a better life, whose wife was virtuous and beautiful, whose children had good academic results, and even began to play more musical instruments. Everything involved in life was compared to each other. The strong people in the village began to compare with the people in the county. Competition was everywhere. However, the people did not have the pressure to survive. There was no expenditure on education and medical care. In theory, there was no expenditure, but in reality, there was still a part of the expenditure. For example, if they felt that a school was good, the adults in the family would want to move. If they moved their family there, the children would naturally go to the local school. Also, the local medical center's medical standards were not good enough. If they fell ill, the family would have to think of ways to bring the patient to a better place to seek treatment. There was no expenditure on medical care and education. The money was used on support. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan did not care about such things. In fact, they could not do anything about it. It was the most basic desire of human survival. As for the social unrest caused by the increase in the production of goods in the process of economic development, it had always been balanced by shifting the crisis. For example, if the production of oranges in Huainan province increased by 3 times, there would also be a lot of fruits in other places. In the face of a backlog, there would be people organizing large ships to process the oranges and ship them overseas. Although the oranges would not be able to maintain the original price, their income would increase. At the very least, it would be faster than inflation. Then, the extra money would naturally be used to improve their lives or be deposited in a bank for future generations to use. Luxury goods were particularly important in such a social environment. Production technology had also begun to be used on a large scale, such as hand-cranked juicers and soy milk makers, ovens that used coal or firewood as fuel, and glass windows that had begun to decrease in price. These were middle-grade consumer goods that the people of the Great Tang, who already had enough to eat and wear, were willing to pursue. Once wages, grain, and animal husbandry increased again, the middle-grade consumer goods would become low-grade daily products, and the high-end consumer goods would become middle-grade consumer goods. For the Great Tang, this was a virtuous cycle. As long as the production technology could keep up and the speed of production was controlled, the Great Tang would not face any problems. But for the countries and tribes outside, this was an enormous threat. Their basic production capacity could not keep up, and when they bought things from the Great Tang merchants with great difficulty, they would not be able to use them for more than a few years before new and better things appeared. There was always competition and competition between people. Whether or not to buy new things was a problem. If one did not have enough money to buy them, what would one do if others saved up enough money to buy them? Thus, without the help of basic technology from outside, the weak countries that depend on the products of the strong countries will never be able to develop. Their human resources have always been used to buy the daily necessities of the strong countries, but these daily necessities are luxuries to them. In order to enjoy more of the things of the Great Tang, they will inevitably use all sorts of methods within their own countries, or rather, use any means necessary. There will be fierce internal struggles, even wars, and they will not be able to free up their hands to develop their country's economy. Thus, we must limit the export of technology and not allow them to obtain better technology. While we are researching the 7th generation technology, the common people are using the 4th generation technology, and the army is using the 5th generation technology. Their technology cannot surpass our 2nd generation technology. On the 29th of the 12th lunar month, there was still one day before the new year. Zhang Xiaobao was not idle. He was giving a lecture to Li Longji, the members of the imperial household, and those who specialized in national strategy. It was not that Zhang Xiaobao wanted to give a lecture today, but there were some people whose minds were beginning to become unstable. In a place near the Strait of Malacca, or to be more precise, a local tribe in Singapore, an extremely intelligent tribal chief had suddenly appeared. This tribal chief had told the merchants that he was willing to submit to the Great Tang, to truly submit. He would even allow the Great Tang to send officials to govern the area and build factories there. They would provide large amounts of land and cheap labor, and they would even be able to provide no money as long as they provided 2 meals. At the same time, they wanted to be educated by the Great Tang. They would use the local jewels to hire Great Tang teachers to give lectures to their people. The news spread as the merchants returned home. Many people were overjoyed. They felt that this was what it meant to subdue the enemy without fighting, and it showed the Great Tang style of being a powerful country. Thus, Zhang Xiaobao could only call them over and give them a lecture to prevent them from really agreeing to the tribal chief's proposal. Wang Wan was also listening. After Zhang Xiaobao finished, she continued, "They will learn our technology and apply it. They will indeed not use this technology to attack us, but they will attack others. They will take great risks to occupy other people's land and head to unknown and distant places in the sea. This is a competition for resources, a motivation to promote the development of their civilization. If you want to leave some enemies for your descendants, then agree to their proposal. Enjoy the new year, everyone." Li Longji said and stood up to leave. His meaning was clear. He asked the people present not to agree and they had to be careful in the future. "Madam, let's go as well." Zhang Xiaobao went to support Wang Wan as if he was protecting a treasure. The others also stood up to send them off. Let's go, let's go. To think that we would encounter such a situation after coming back for the new year. It's vexing. Don't put your thoughts on the outside world. Develop properly within the Great Tang. There's no need for you to change the strategies of the outside world. Rather than helping 100 outsiders, it's better to raise the standard of living of one Great Tang citizen. Li Sun, who had rushed back from outside, complained to the crowd before walking away. The remaining members of the imperial family had ugly expressions. What right did Li Sun have to speak like that? It was just that he was close to Zhang Xiaobao. The crown prince didn't even say anything. The firecrackers of the new year rang out one after another. Quite a few people had come to the residences of the Zhang family and Wang family. There were farmers, Li Longji, and other members of the imperial family. Instead of celebrating the new year with the common people, they had run over to the Zhang family and Wang family to have a reunion dinner. Any other family would have already been unable to celebrate the new year. With the emperor present, they would have to wait on him. Fortunately, the Zhang family and Wang family often met with Li Longji, so they were not as cautious as before. Li Longji even went to pay his New Year greetings to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's grandparents. Although he didn't kneel, he still bowed. The other princes also had to pay their New Year greetings. People like Xiao Bei and the crown prince had to kneel and kowtow. Although the old man and old lady didn't have much authority, and they had only received a title and name, they had a grandson and a granddaughter. So both of them had to kneel. What about you? Of course they didn't kneel for nothing. The old man and his wife gave each of them a large red packet. In addition to more than 10,000 strings of cash, there was also a plan for the development of the Great Tang that they were currently busy developing. This plan had been specially drawn up by Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. To them, the plan was more useful than money. The amount of each dish on the table wasn't large, but there was a variety of dishes and they could all be tried. In truth, they couldn't eat much at all. The adults were chatting, while the children were being led by Xiao Bei to set off firecrackers. Their own family and the children from Zhuangzi all listened to Xiao Bei. Xiao Bei was so busy that she didn't have much time to play. She was constantly organizing and coordinating. When Xiao Bei grows up, she'll also be a prime minister. Li Longji said with a smile as he watched Xiao Bei run in and get the children to grab some sunflower seeds. Then he led them out in a hurry. When the members of the imperial family heard this, they had other thoughts. Before anyone could say anything, Zhang Xiaobao's voice rang out. Xiao Bei won't do. Being the prime minister is too tiring. It's better for her to play happily all day. Only someone who has the ability and can put their thoughts on the country and the people can be the prime minister. What a pity. Li Longji shook his head and said. However, he was still thinking about whether or not he should get someone from the Zhang family and Wang family into the Hall of Governmental Affairs in the future. Otherwise, it would be easy for bad things to happen. For example, when others saw that no one from the Zhang family and Wang family was an official in the imperial court, they would think that the power of the two families had decreased. Then they wouldn't care and would bully them when they had conflicts. The consequences of that would be very serious. It would easily send a bad signal to the people. Even if the people who provoked them were dealt with, the people would think that the imperial family didn't value the Zhang family and Wang family. Li Longji thought about it like this. For a moment, he didn't know who to pull into the Hall of Governmental Affairs, so he could only put it aside for the time being. He asked Zhang Xiaobao, "When are you leaving?" "After the second day of the first month, we'll leave immediately to get married. We have to go back to Zhuangzi. That's where our real home is," Zhang Xiaobao replied. He and Wang Wan had to go to Sanshui County's Zhang family and Wang family's Zhuangzi to complete the wedding. Li Longji frowned. "Will we make it in time? Cuckoo can't bear the bumps." He knew that Wang Wan was pregnant and wanted to congratulate her. Unlike the women in the village, it was shameful for them to get pregnant before marriage. However, when it came to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, it wasn't a big deal. Logically speaking, they couldn't sleep together before marriage. However, after the two of them got engaged, it was no different from getting married. This was actually discrimination against women. However, even if Xiaobao and Cuckoo had given birth to a child a year ago and hadn't gotten married, no one in the Tang dynasty would think that Cuckoo was bad. Instead, they would give the child a lot of blessings. However, there would probably be people who would talk about Xiaobao and ask why he didn't get married earlier and had a child. As Li Longji thought about this, a smile appeared on his face. He believed that the people of the Tang dynasty would really talk about Xiaobao in front of him. It was fine now. Coming a month earlier was just right. Their parents would probably be anxious. Zhang Xiaobao did not know what Li Longji was thinking. He replied, "It's fine. The ice on the river that we passed through this year is not broken yet. If we walk on the ice, we have a diesel-powered snowmobile. We can even go back a few days earlier to make arrangements and rest." Really? When Li Longji asked this question, he already knew that the truth wouldn't change. It had to be true. He thought in his heart that the best technology had always been used on his family. Back then Xiaobei's house was the same. Now it was the same. Zhang Xiaobao nodded with certainty. Li Longji smiled again. "Just nice. I'll go too and join in the fun." Chapter 1381. The sound of firecrackers gradually died down. Li Longji and the others had already returned before dawn. The little ones who said they were going to keep watch until dawn couldn't hold on. They were arranged to take a bath. Yawning, they said they would continue to play the next day and fell asleep one after another. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan followed their family into the small hall. They drank tea and ate dried fruit as they talked. The servants in the family had changed. The people who took over were all very energetic. Unfortunately, because they were sleeping, they didn't make it in time for the New Year's Eve dinner. Zhang Xiaobao drove them out to eat with the others. There were no longer any servants in the small hall. "Xiaobao, Cuckoo, after you get married, where do you want to be an official?" Zhang Zhong held a glass of wine in his hand and asked his son and daughter-in-law. He was very happy today and didn't drink tea. He was very energetic, so he planned to drink a few more glasses of wine. Today the emperor came. Although the emperor would occasionally come to the house for a meal, it was different today. Today was New Year's Eve. What kind of favor could make the emperor not worship heaven and come to the house for a meal? Naturally, it had nothing to do with him. The emperor came for his son and daughter-in-law. He didn't worship heaven and came to the house for a meal. Clearly, the emperor meant that instead of praying to heaven, it was better to entrust people to him. The people he could entrust to were Xiaobao and Cuckoo. With the two of them, the emperor didn't even care about heaven's prestige. Even the previous state scholars weren't like this, right? Since the emperor valued Xiaobao and Cuckoo so much, he should listen to their plans. He couldn't run back to the Bohai commander-in-chief's manor. It was too far from the capital. If something happened, it would be inconvenient to send a telegram. Zhang Xiaobao was peeling sunflower seeds. He peeled out about 20 and stuffed them into Wang Wan's mouth. There was an outsider here. Otherwise, Zhang Xiaobao would eat them with his mouth and hold them in his mouth. When there was more, he would feed them to Wang Wan because it was faster that way. Zhang Xiaobao had just fed a handful of sunflower seeds to Wang Wan when he heard his father's question. He smiled casually and said, "After we get married, we'll go back to the capital and stay there. We won't go anywhere until the child is born." "What about your official position?" Zhang Zhong asked again. "I'll continue to be a provincial commander, but I won't go back. It's not good for me and Cuckoo to enter the imperial court, and we can't be local officials. I plan to open a company with Cuckoo and help others to make money. Anyway, we have nothing to do. The north of Hebei province is full of our trusted aides, and I don't believe that there will be any trouble." Zhang Xiaobao took a sip of tea and said as he peeled the sunflower seeds. Fortunately, Wang Wan didn't feed him a big almond, so he had something to chew on in his mouth. "Oh." Wang Yu finally couldn't take it anymore and stopped him. He said to his son-in-law, "Xiaobao, why are you giving others ideas? We have both manpower and capital in our family. Isn't it good for you to give us some ideas?" "Oh, my father-in-law, we have enough money. We can't only do business with one family. Are you planning to make the Tang Empire ours?" Zhang Xiaobao explained to his father-in-law. That's right. That's right." As soon as Wang Yu talked about his family's situation, he straightened his back and laughed proudly. He said, "Indeed, we have to leave some soup for others. We're all from the Tang Empire, so we can't be too selfish. We should help as much as we can. It's not easy for everyone. If one day all the places in the Tang Empire can be like our Sanshui County, that would be great." Wang Wan took another bite of the melon seeds Zhang Xiaobao handed over and said to her father, "It's not for free. There are 3 kinds of people who receive money. One is to receive money after giving the idea, the other is to receive money after others use the idea to make money or something is successful, and the other is to receive shares. Usually, you choose the second kind because no one will trust your idea. If you have power, others will choose the third kind and ask you to do it together with them. You can be considered a backer. However, if it's me and Xiaobao giving ideas, others will give money even if we receive it first. It's a matter of reputation." "You still want to receive money? Our family doesn't lack money." Wang Yu felt that it was not good for Xiaobao and Cuckoo to take money after giving ideas to the Tang people. In the past, they gave ideas to the people for free. "Father, of course we have to take money. If there's no reward, who would be willing to do things? For example, in Zhuangzi, no matter how much work the farmers did, the master gave them the same benefits. What do you think?" Wang Wan asked her father. Wang Yu was stunned and said, "How much do you charge Xiaobao for giving you an idea but not putting in the effort?" "It depends on what the other party wants to do. If they want to go to the moon, no matter how much money they pay, they won't accept. If they want to ask how to find a job, I'll charge them 2 copper coins and give them a map. Let them follow it to the local government and the government will arrange it." Wang Wan said with a smile. "The map of the capital is 2 copper coins." Wang Yu said. "That's right, sell it to them. Xiaobao and I will make a profit from the difference." "Ha ha ha ha, my daughter, you're so funny." Wang Yu was amused by his daughter's words. He felt that it was a good idea for his daughter to stay in the capital with his son-in-law and not go out. Zhang Zhong was a little worried and asked, "Will it be very tiring?" "No, it's open 2 hours a day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. The rest of the time it's not open. Xiaobao and I still have to teach Xiaobei and the others. There's also the younger Ji Xiangrui, which is left to the servant girls to take care of. Me and Xiaobao are worried. Xiaobao always says that raising children is a systematic and big project. It's more difficult than making a name for oneself and running a place well. Children are the continuation of life, but not the continuation of one's ideals. Children are born and raised by oneself, but they also belong to the child." Wang Wan rubbed her belly and said. The Zhang family and Wang family both understood that Cuckoo's words meant that she was worried about leaving the children to them to teach. Thinking about it, it made sense. If it was just them, they definitely wouldn't be able to teach Xiaobei and the others. If they had to say that Xiaobei, Xiaoyuan, Xiaohai, and Xiaozhu were born well, then how would they explain the other 5? It was impossible that the children would immediately become smart after meeting a child and recognizing them as family. It must be the work of Xiaobao and Cuckoo. It was really tiring to see them teach the children. It was as if they were watching them all the time. However, the effect was very good. The children had their own happiness, but they were also very sensible. When these 2 contradictory things were put together, they were actually unified. "Well, it's daybreak. Let's rest." Zhang Zhong looked at the sky outside and instructed. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan knew that the 2 of them were going to rest. To be more precise, it was the pregnant woman who was going to rest. After staying up all night, it was fortunate that she was in good health. If it were someone with a weak body, after staying up all night, the child would be gone. Madam, this way. Zhang Xiaobao immediately went over to support her. The two of them walked out step by step. My son-in-law is really good. Wang Yu praised. He's just pretending. Zhang Zhong naturally said the opposite. He's not pretending. I can see it. In-law, I'll drink with you and eat some dishes. Wang Yu was as energetic as Zhang Zhong and didn't want to sleep. After sending both parents away, the two families of four began to drink. The second day of the new year arrived in the blink of an eye. At around 10 o'clock, which was less than noon, Zhang Zhong and Wang families set out. Following them were Li Longji, Empress Wang, and Wu Huifei's teams. In total, there were more than 5,000 people. This was still a lot of simplification. Otherwise, there would be at least 20,000 people. The place they were going to was Sanshui County, which was not very far from the capital. Along the way, they had to pass by the place where Zhang Zhong used to be an official. The danger was very small. The two sides only brought 5,000 people. In the sky, Shuiyun's family was flying so they could detect some dangers in advance. Shuiyun and Hong Luan had children again. To be precise, they had unborn children. This time there were more, 15 of them. In the middle of winter, they insisted on nesting, which was different from other eagles. As a result, Hong Luan couldn't put all 15 eggs under her and was very anxious. Shuiyun discussed with Zhang Ying and decided to incubate them in Zhuangzi by using electricity at a constant temperature. This was the first time that eagle eggs were incubated by artificial incubation. Shuiyun was very relieved. He had seen how poultry eggs were incubated many times. The chicks and ducklings came out and were even willing to run with the hen and duck. It was unknown how he managed to convince Hong Luan, but in any case Hong Luan didn't object. After 1 or 2 days, the two of them would fly to the manor with the 11 children and look at the hatching eggs through the glass. As a result, their 15 unborn children were coveted by others. Someone offered 800,000 strings of cash to buy one and promised to treat it as his own son. As a result, as soon as this person expressed his attitude, someone offered 2 million strings of cash to buy one and also promised to treat it well. The price began to rise and stopped when it reached 5 million strings of cash. This was the price offered by a person on the top-ranking list of billionaires. He was ranked 19th. 5 million strings of cash was 5 billion copper coins. It was once the annual income of the great Tang's national treasury to buy one eagle home. Xiaobei and the others were angry. They selfishly felt that the Shuiyun family's children were their own. What kind of crime was it to spend money to buy a general's child? Was 5 million strings of cash a lot? As a result, no one mentioned the purchase again. They understood that the new baby eagles were kept by Xiaobei and the others. Who would dare to compete with them? Sitting in the ice sleigh, Li Longji looked at Shuiyun's family enviously. After a while he said, "Freedom soaring in the blue sky. Xiaobao, don't you agree? Your Majesty, you want the baby eagles, don't you?" Zhang Xiaobao sat outside in thick clothes and controlled the sleigh. He asked Li Longji bluntly, "How do you raise them? All the good things go to your family. Look at your dog bringing you newspapers every day. Most importantly, your family doesn't subscribe to any newspapers." Li Longji pointed out the key point. Of course, he wouldn't say that Zhang Xiaobao's dog stole things. He guessed that the dog went to the printing press to get the papers. Would the printing press accept money from it? Moreover, the most important thing wasn't the number of dogs. Just like Zhang Xiaobao and Wang's Zhuangzi geese, with furry, all the poultry in Zhuangzi were obedient. It was the same for dogs. According to Xiaobao's words, dogs were superior to cats. Some said that dogs would rush to their deaths when their owners were in danger, but none said that cats would rush to their deaths when their owners were in danger. Therefore, his family's dog could always lead thousands of other dogs to the second line of rescue. This was because the first line was the eagle. It was the fastest and the aid it threw was accurate. This year there was still heavy snow that crushed the house and blocked the road, but there were no deaths. As long as they ran out of the house before it collapsed in the middle of the night and persevered until dawn, there would be a flock of eagles to deliver things that could sustain their lives. They were almost unaffected by the weather. Even if the snow was still falling, Shui Yun's family could lead the flock of eagles and fly together with the snow. There's no other way. They're good people. There are even swallows at home that don't fly south. Zhang Xiaobao said proudly. In fact, he didn't know what was going on. He had never seen such smart animals before. As they chatted and laughed, they arrived at Sanshui County. Sanshui County didn't seem to have changed at all. It was the same as before, but only people who knew the local people knew what kind of existence Sanshui County was. Good production techniques were always in Sanshui County because the people here were the most supportive. No one dared to guess how rich the people of Sanshui County were. The scenery of Sanshui County was still praised by others. When they arrived at Sanshui County, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Xiaobao said in their hearts almost at the same time, "We're home." "It's really a paradise on earth," Li Longji said with emotion. The scenery in front of them was really beautiful. The snow didn't destroy the ethereal appearance of Sanshui County. It was said that Sanshui County was ethereal all year round, but it was real to live in it. "Your Majesty, please take a look first. We have to prepare for the wedding." Zhang Xiaobao said a few words to Li Longji before he got back to work. Wang Wan, on the other hand, was restrained by Zhang Xiaobao to not tire herself out. The 26th day of the first month finally came under the anticipation of all the people of the Great Tang. For the people of the Great Tang, every day was like a year. Except for the children, everyone paid 10 copper coins. Even if there was a rich family in the village or county who said that they would pay all of it, no one wanted others to pay. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Xiaobao's restaurant business and business partners finally waited for this day. Before they were so busy. If they had to find a phrase to describe it, it would be tired but happy. This was a wedding held by the entire Great Tang for these two people. Most people wanted to marry the Zhang Xiaobao and Wang family in Sanshui County, but they were indeed two families. The two families were next to each other, so when Zhang Xiaobao went home, he couldn't bring Wang Wan back. Wang Wan stayed at her own home. The two families had already prepared according to the etiquette and were waiting for Zhang Xiaobao to pick up the bride. There were etiquette for official ranks such as how many people, how many banners, how many horses, and what the carriage looked like. Moreover, the maternal family had prepared everything and were waiting for the son-in-law to come over so that they could make things difficult for him. At the very least, they couldn't let the son-in-law go over so easily. The servants in the family were all knowledgeable and had studied for more than 10 years. Even if they had been taught by Zhang Xiaobao, they didn't plan to give the son-in-law any face at this time. Who asked the son-in-law to be the top scorer in the imperial examinations. Back then his song had shocked the capital. If they didn't match 3 to 5 poems, they definitely wouldn't let him through the door. While everyone was waiting, they suddenly discovered a problem. Whether it was the maternal family or the mother-in-law's family, they all discovered that Zhang Xiaobao was gone. Big brother couldn't have fooled around and gone in first, right? Xiao Bei stood at the door of the maternal family and asked Xiao Yuan, who was beside him. "Then didn't I prepare the poem for nothing?" Xiao Yuan felt very hurt. Just as Xiao Bei was about to speak, someone suddenly shouted, "It's coming, it's coming. Damn, it's coming from the sky." Everyone raised their heads to look. First it was a small black dot. Then they heard a buzzing sound. In the sky above the reed lake between the clouds and the water restaurant, something appeared in the south. It wasn't an eagle, nor was it a bird. When it got closer, they discovered that there was a person standing on that thing. Someone took out a pair of binoculars and saw that it was the young master. He had actually run up to that thing. Wang Wan, who was in the attic, heard the sound and pushed open the window to take a look. Her eyes immediately turned round and she used her fastest speed to grab the binoculars. She saw that thing fly over her head and circle in a circle. Then she saw Zhang Xiaobao make a hand gesture and quickly ran towards the roof of the attic. After another circle, the thing returned to the top of the lake. Someone saw the young master jump down. Then a flower appeared on his body. It looked like a parachute, but it was different from the one they had seen before. Zhang Xiaobao didn't pay attention to the bystanders. He controlled the automatic glider, estimated the wind speed and direction, and flew towards the attic of the Wang family. The moment he passed by the roof, he suddenly hung upside down and extended his hands. Wang Wan, who was in the attic, also extended her hands. The two of them grasped each other tightly in less than a second. Zhang Xiaobao carried Wang Wan and flew into the distance. What was left behind were the depressed people and their depressed expressions. "When was the plane ready?" asked Wang Wan, who was sitting on Zhang Xiaobao. "It flew back last month. Along the way we passed by several refueling stations. I intercepted the news. You also know that no matter how powerful the woman is, the man is the master of the family. They have to listen to me," replied Zhang Xiaobao. "So you're saying that you're the most powerful?" "Wrong. They think that I'm the most powerful. I know that. I have to listen to my wife." "My wife is an existence that listens to thunder in silence," replied Zhang Xiaobao. "From today onwards, you have to tell me everything about your past, especially the pending cases. I have to know how many people you killed and how they died, said Wang Wan with a pout. Okay. You scared me to death. I thought you were asking about the 65 women. Zhang Xiaobao let out a long breath. Hee 65. Don't you know? When you went to the brothel to scheme against someone told me that when you saw a woman approaching you, your legs would tremble. 65. No wonder you can leap onto roofs and vault over walls. So it's because you're trembling. Don't let me know who he or she is. I'll make his heart tremble. He dares to expose my shortcomings. Some people were depressed at the wedding, while others simply didn't know the actual situation. In any case, the entire Great Tang was celebrating the new year, with the sound of firecrackers and then the eating and drinking. Previously, when Zhang Xiaobao was receiving gifts, it was already enough of a sensation. The gifts that he gave were something that no one dared to even think about. However, there were still people who wanted to give it a try if they had the chance. This was especially so for those on the top rankings. When their grandson got married, perhaps they could learn from Xiaobao with money. But when they saw the wedding, they were all discouraged. No matter how much money they had, they couldn't buy the congratulations of the entire Great Tang. Even the Minister of Revenue, Wang Bei, had to set off firecrackers to celebrate. They knew that if they didn't give them face at this time, they would become mortal enemies, and the people of the Great Tang would take action. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.